Young master, all 8 paths have been blocked. Not a single guard has been let through. With the young master taking action, this bunch of people still dare to barge in. They really overestimate themselves. Young master, you have incredible foresight. In the blink of an eye, you destroyed this group of fellows. A group of manservants rushed to flatter Kim Tae-ho. Kim Tae-ho's chubby face was filled with enjoyment. He waved his hand and said with a smile, "They're just small fries. What's there to say? Do I look like someone who can't stay calm?" Bang! Right after Kim Tae-ho spoke, a figure fell from the sky, shattering the tiles on the roof. When Jean de Bao landed in front of Jean de Bao, he was startled. His fat figure moved at an incredible speed and quickly hid behind a few manservants. However, when Kim Tae-ho saw this person's appearance, he laughed loudly. He pushed the servants aside and walked over. Naturally, the person who fell from the sky was none other than the Kunlun realm's Bushin Palace's welcoming envoy, Wan Feng. Xiao Chen's blue dragon goes to sea shattered Wan Feng's quintessence and damaged his internal organs. His external and internal injuries were severe. At this moment, he was as strong as a cripple. Wan Feng coughed intensely a few times and vomited a mouthful of blood. Then, he looked around and saw the smiling Kim Tae-ho. Disdain and disgust flashed in Wan Feng's eyes. He said casually, "I remember you. You are the young master of the Great Tang Nation's Golden Rock Merchant Association. I'll give you a chance now. Find me a place to treat my injuries, and I can consider returning that Azure Phoenix Spirit Core to you." Kim Tae-ho chuckled and said, "Elder Brother Feng is indeed Elder Brother Feng. You are not even worth shit now, yet you are still so magnanimous. Why are you all still not helping Elder Brother Feng up?" When Wan Feng heard this, a murderous intent flashed in his heart. "Damn you, fatso. When I recover, I'll kill you first." However, Wan Feng was currently severely injured and could not afford to flare up. He looked at the manservants helping him up and smiled. "At least you are sensible. I am the welcoming envoy of the upper realm. If you work for me, you will obtain unimaginable benefits. If you serve me well, I can give you a spot to go to the Kunlun realm. It is not impossible, ah." "Pa!" The manservants loosened their grip. Wan Feng, who had just gotten up, fell back down with a bang. This affected the injuries in his body. He could not help crying out in pain. Kim Tae-ho demanded angrily, "How can you all help me up? Don't you know that this is the welcoming envoy of the upper realm, Elder Brother Feng? If you offend him, he can flick you to death with just one finger." "Elder Brother Feng. Elder Brother Feng. Let me help you up. These fellows do not know how to do things." Dragging his fat body, Kim Tae-ho wobbled over and helped Wan Feng up again. "I'll endure." At this moment, Wan Feng no longer had any temper. He only wanted to find a place to treat his injuries before dealing with this group of fellows. He forced a smile and said, "It's fine, it's fine. I can still afford to fall with such minor injuries. Come, help me down first." Kim Tae-ho gently let go of Wan Feng's hand and chuckled. "No problem. This fat lord will send you down now. Stand firmly and don't move. Don't ever move. That's right, that's right. Just maintain this posture." Wan Feng's originally unstable body suddenly started thumping. He felt that something was wrong for no reason. Before he could react, he suddenly received a heavy blow to his butt. Suddenly, he received a heavy blow on his buttocks. His body was like a rubber ball, rolling down the roof with banging sounds. Bang! After falling from a height of nearly 100 meters, Wan Feng's body bounced heavily twice. He opened his mouth and vomited a mouthful of blood. Then, he cried out in agony. Up on the roof, Kim Tae-ho retracted his leg and went to the eaves with a few manservants. When they saw Wan Feng in a sorry state, they all laughed loudly. "Elder Brother Feng, I'm sorry. Your butt is too stylish. This fat lord really could not help it. I apologize to you. Kim Tae-ho chuckled as he fanned himself with a golden fan. The fat on his face jiggled. Wan Feng, who was on the ground, flew into a rage out of humiliation. At this moment, he finally understood that this fatso did not care about him at all. From the very start, fatso had been toying with him. Damn you, fatso. You can laugh all you want now. When I recover in the future, I will definitely kill your entire family. Wan Feng said to Kim Tae-ho coldly and mercilessly as he struggled to stand up. If looks could kill, Kim Tae-ho would have died long ago. Bastard! How dare you scold my young master? Are you tired of living? I will spit on you to death. Bah! 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 Before Kim Tae-ho could say anything, the manservants behind him found an opportunity to curry favor. All of them immediately spat on Wan Feng. Under the joint efforts of the manservants, their spittle really fell like rain, and it didn't stop. Wan Feng's face turned green, startled. Since he entered the extreme Yin sect, he had never received such treatment. Even when he was humiliated in the past, it had never been this severe. Unexpectedly, he was being bullied by a few inexperienced manservants from the lower realm, spitting on him. However, Wan Feng did not have a good way to deal with this. He could only drag his severely injured body around miserably, fearing that the spit would land on him. Kim Tae-ho waved his hand and smiled. Stop right there. What did this fat lord teach you all normally? This is the Kunlun realm's elder brother Feng. It is not easy for him to come to the Sky Dome realm, and this is how you greet him. Wan Feng stopped and wiped off the spit on his face. Then, he heaved a sigh of relief. This fatso finally knew his limits. He did not dare to offend Wan Feng to death. Whoosh! A strong gust of wind blew over. Wan Feng raised his head and saw a golden coffin lid falling from the sky, slamming heavily on his body. The huge force sent Wan Feng tumbling in the air. His nose caved in, and a few of his front teeth fell out. Then, he vomited blood in the air. His entire body flipped 360 degrees over 100 times before landing heavily on the ground. Holding the coffin lid, Kim Tae-ho smiled heartlessly. How can this be considered a reception if it does not hurt or itch? Is that right, elder brother Feng? Hee hee. Elder brother Feng feels so good that he is speechless. In that case, let me do it a few more times. Hearing Kim Tae-ho's approaching footsteps, Wan Feng, who was on the verge of fainting, suddenly jolted awake. Kim Tae-ho's harmless smile was like that of a demon in Wan Feng's heart. No, even a demon would not be as scary as this fellow. Recalling the encounter from before, Wan Feng suddenly came to his senses. He took out the Azure One inner core from his spatial ring and handed it over. I was wrong. I'll return this inner core to you. We don't owe each other anything. Kim Tae-ho chuckled and said, what are you talking about? I didn't hear you. This feels really good. Bang! After Xiaochen finished speaking, the wide coffin lid smashed Wan Feng into the air again with another bang. Intense pain caused Wan Feng's entire body to tremble. He felt like he was better off dead. Hee hee. I really couldn't tell that elder brother Feng had such a hobby. In that case, this fat lord will reluctantly slap you a few more times. Xiaochen did not show any mercy. This time, Wan Feng completely lost all hope. He handed over the spirit core and said with teary eyes, Lord Jin, I was wrong. I should not have worked with the Wan clan to cheat you. What did you say? Speak louder. This fat lord does not have elder brother Feng's cultivation, Kim Tae-ho said with a chuckle as he placed the coffin lid in front of him. Plop. Wan Feng knelt on the ground, enduring the indescribable pain. He said loudly, Lord Jin, I was really wrong. I will not dare to cheat you again. Kim Tae-ho smiled and said, I told you long ago. This fat lord has never suffered a loss in my life. Since you admit your mistake, this fat lord will be a great person and forgive you. The treasures on you should be barely enough to make up for this fat lord's losses. Kim Tae-ho waved his hand, and the manservants immediately understood what fatso meant. They rushed over and pulled out everything on Wan Feng's body, taking out everything of value. At this moment, Wan Feng could not resist at all. He felt grief and indignation in his heart, but there was nothing he could do. Soon, everything was pulled out, and he lay naked on the ground. Young master, this is the most valuable thing. It seems to be a superior grade secret treasure. One of the manservants handed a damaged inner vest to Jean Fatso like he was presenting a treasure. Chapter 639. Kim Tae-ho's eyes lit up. He smiled and said, "No wonder this fellow can withstand the beating. It turns out that he is wearing a superior grade inner vest. Let's go and see what the situation is like in the Wan clan's palace. Let's see if there are any more benefits to be gained. Young master, what should we do with this fellow? He is just lying here naked. After all, he is the welcoming envoy of the Kunlun realm." Kim Tae-ho thought for a while and casually took out a pair of underwear from his spatial ring. Then, he tossed it to Wan Feng and said casually, "This fat lord has been extremely benevolent to you. Don't forget the favor of this fat lord giving you underwear." That looks like a woman's underwear. Young master. Damn it. This fat lord's hobby has been exposed. I am too embarrassed to face others. Quickly, scram. Kim Tae-ho moved forward at lightning speed with a shio sound. He left behind a few manservants to exchange glances. Since when did this fellow have any face? After everyone left, the naked Wan Feng hugged the red underwear and curled up into a ball. Wan Feng could no longer hold it in and burst into tears. His cries were filled with sorrow and grief. Those who were not in the know would think that 10-odd strong men had taken away the most precious chastity of a girl. Naturally, the people in the plaza did not know what happened to Wan Feng. Otherwise, they would be flabbergasted. At this moment, everyone's gazes were focused on the white-robed bladesman, who was walking continuously towards Feng Feishue. At this moment, Xiaoqin did not seem to be in a good state, looking like he would collapse at any moment. However, Wan Baolu and his son, who were blocking Feng Feishue, trembled in fear, not daring to make a move. No one could say for sure how much strength Xiaoqin had left. Even someone as strong as Wan Feng lost to him. If he still had trump cards, only death awaited them if they made a move. The Wan clan's father and son enjoyed glory and honor. Their days were much more leisurely than ordinary people's. The more this was so, the more they feared death. As the Wan clan's father and son approached, they were caught between a rock and a hard place. They did not dare to step forward and fight, but they were also not willing to hand over Feng Feishue after spending so much effort. Enough. Just at this moment, a deep and cold snort suddenly rang out, resounding through the heavens and earth. That voice contained boundless power. These two words were like thunder, shaking heaven and earth. A powerful aura pressed down on Xiaoqin like a mountain. That power was many times stronger than Xiaoqin's. Just the aura alone was enough to make Xiaoqin unable to move. His feet felt like they were filled with lead stones. Wan Baolo's face lit up and he said, "The old ancestor took action." An old man in embroidered robes seemed to appear out of nowhere and appeared in front of Xiaoqin, blocking his path. His deep eyes stared at Xiaoqin. The guests in the plaza all showed fear on their faces. They all shook their heads and sighed. In the end, the white-robed bladesman cannot advance any further. The Wan clan's martial sage has made a move. Isn't there a rumor that if one makes a move against Xiaoqin in the Sky Dome realm, there will be bad consequences? This is just a rumor. It might not be true. Furthermore, the Wan clan is already forced to this extent. If they still do not make a move, are they really going to let Xiaoqin bring Feng Feishue away in front of everyone? At this moment, Xiaoqin is already an arrow at the end of its flight. A martial sage can destroy him in one move. I really don't believe there will be any bad consequences. All sorts of discussions resounded. Although there was a rumor that if a martial sage made a move against the bearer of luck in the Sky Dome realm, there would be bad consequences, not many people believed it. This was because the current Xiaochen looked too weak. First, he defeated 36 martial monarchs. Then, he defeated the 8 great guardian deities. Finally, he sent the Kunlun realm's Wanfeng flying. All these were already incredible. With Xiaochen's current cultivation, even if he did not exhaust his quintessence, he would be close to it. If any martial monarch among them dared to take a gamble, they would be able to stop Xiaochen. What more, a martial sage in perfect condition? The Wang clan's martial sage said sullenly, "Little friend, today, you caused a huge commotion in the Wang clan, showing off before everyone. My Wang clan also suffered heavy losses because of you. If you leave now, I will not blame you for today's matter." In reality, the moment Xiaochen arrived at the Wang clan's palace, this person had already noticed him. However, he feared the rumor and did not dare to make a move. The bearer of luck carried the luck of the great thousand realms and was protected by the heavenly Tao. Martial sages already touched the threshold of the heavenly Tao. If they made a move against the bearer of luck, the heavenly Tao would immediately notice. Sima Hong did not believe this and tried to kill Xiaochen. However, this was the will of heaven. Not only did Sima Hong fail, but he was also hung at the gates of Saber City, losing his reputation and face. With Sima Hong as a precedent, the Wang clan's martial sage had to be cautious. He had been holding back and not making a move. However, at this moment, he had no choice but to make a move. Since ancient times, Xiaochen was the first inferior-grade martial monarch to be treated so politely by a martial sage. Everyone looked at Xiaochen, waiting for him to speak, to see how he would answer. Xiaochen shook his head and said, "I have not seen the person I want to meet yet. I will not leave." Such an answer was unexpected, shocking everyone. Unexpectedly, Xiaochen rejected a martial sage's suggestion. Where did he get his confidence from? The Wang clan's martial sage's expression turned grave, and a murderous intent appeared in his eyes. He said, "Have you made up your mind to barge in?" A vast quintessence surged in Xiaochen's body. Winds blew and clouds churned behind him. Suddenly, the clear sky turned dark, looking even more terrifying than the old man's expression. This person was truly angry. All the guests felt the strong killing qi in the surging winds and clouds, as vast as the sea. Before that aura, Xiaochen was as insignificant as an ant, not even an ant. Xiaochen said calmly, "I have never thought of destroying the Wang clan. I just want to lift that red veil and ask her if marrying into the Wang clan is her original intention. If it is, I will turn around and leave. If it is not, I will follow my promise and bring her away." This person was very clear on how Feng Feishue came to the Wang clan. Naturally, he would not let Xiaochen ask her. "Since you insist on doing this, don't blame me for bullying the weak." The Wang clan's martial sage was going to make his move. Everyone could already guess what would happen next. When they saw Xiaochen's blood-stained white robes, they could not help but reveal an expression of pity. "Xiao." Just at this moment, the situation changed. The black bag on Xiaochen's back suddenly opened up, and a simple, rectangular wooden box flew out and landed heavily on the ground. It was like an invisible wall spread out from the wooden box. In that instant, the pressure that the martial sage's aura exerted on Xiaochen vanished, and his body returned to normal. The Wang clan's martial sage narrowed his eyes and exclaimed, "Divine weapon." The might of the divine weapon shook the Tianwu continent. The Wang clan's martial sage no longer dared to delay and immediately made his move. However, it was already too late. Ka-xie. Ka-xie. The 4 wooden boards fell, and the divine weapon, the heavenly universe sword, floated quietly in the air. An ancient and strong aura burst forth from it. The divine weapon shattered the momentum of the Wang clan's martial sage's attack, collapsing on its own. The holy seal in Xiaochen's sea of consciousness turned into a clump of golden flame and burned quickly. All sorts of wondrous energies spread throughout his body, giving him the right to use the divine weapon temporarily. Shao Qin stretched out his hand and clenched it. A resonant sword hum tore through the clouds. The divine weapon was drawn. In an instant, the sky turned dark. The sun, moon, and stars appeared. The tens of thousands of people in the plaza felt like they were standing in the boundless starry heavens. Shao Qin grasped the divine weapon tightly and felt an unparalleled energy circulating in his meridians. It felt like he could pluck the stars and grab the moon, twisting the universe, omnipotent. Chop! Shao Qin shouted ferociously and chopped with his saber. The world regained its calm. Everyone looked up and saw the unparalleled Wang clan's martial sage flying backward. Space shattered behind the Wang clan's martial sage. After flying for an unknown distance, the Wang clan's martial sage crashed into a mountain outside Wang clan's city, turning that tall mountain into dust. The divine weapon returned to its scabbard, and a strong energy flowed out of Shao Qin's body like flowing water. He felt dizzy and extremely weak. Even the Wang clan's old ancestor had been sent flying by Shao Qin. The Wang clan's father and son were frightened out of their wits. They completely lost their courage and fled in a sorry state. Shao Qin calmed himself and walked forward step by step in front of all the heroes of the world. The distance between him and Feng Feishue grew shorter and shorter. Soon, he arrived before her. This fellow really walked over. Martial monarchs cannot stop him. The 8 great guardian deities cannot stop him. Now, even a martial sage cannot stop him. Such an incredible scene appeared before everyone's eyes. The shock in the hearts of the many guests could no longer be described with words. In the distance, the Wang clan's martial sage walked out from the collapsed mountain peak. There was a horrifying wound on his chest, it was so deep that bones could be seen. The automatic recovery function of the sage body seemed to have lost its effect. Blood flowed out continuously from the wound. You dog! You actually brought a divine weapon. Let's see how many more times you can use it. The Wang clan's martial sage raged, wanting to soar into the sky. Bang! A strong palm wind tore through the air and knocked back the Wang clan's martial sage. It was the myriad fiend palaces and Zixuan, who had promised to protect Shao Qin. And Zixuan, since when is it your heavenly fiend palace's turn to interfere in the matters of my Wang clan? And Zixuan could not be bothered with the berserk Wang clan's martial sage. I can do whatever I want. Since when is it your turn to care? Just stay here obediently. The Wang clan's martial sage was flustered. However, he was not a match for Zixuan in the first place. Now that he was injured, he was even weaker. On the other side, Shao Qin removed the restriction on Feng Feishue. Then, he slowly removed the red cloth covering her head, revealing a beautiful face that could topple nations. Feng Feishue's eyes misted over. She choked as she said, "You really came." Shao Qin smiled faintly and said, "4 years ago, outside Mo City, I promised to do something for you. I will definitely come to fulfill my promise to you for the rest of my life." Xiao. Shao Qin tore off the cloth covering his head and summoned out the scarlet throne. Then, he helped the severely injured Feng Tianming onto it. Then, he carried Feng Feishue and turned into a red cloud soaring into the sky, slowly disappearing from everyone's sight. After a long time, the crowd withdrew their gazes. When they saw the sorry state of the plaza, they could not help but sigh. The vast Wang clan had 36 martial monarchs, the 8 great guardian deities, and a martial sage. However, Shao Qin single-handedly turned it upside down, inflicting heavy losses. After this day, the Wang clan's reputation in the continent would plummet. It might even lose its position as the top merchant association. A king-grade true dragon genius is indeed extraordinary. The Sky Dome realm really cannot hide him. Chapter 640. Back then, even the Thunder King was not this unbridled, challenging the top merchant association of the world for a promise. It is really hard to imagine that Shao Chun really charged into the Wan clan and even brought the person away for the sake of a promise. The group of people discussed the matter. In this greedy world, there were still people who could keep their promises, daring to risk their lives. This was truly rare. This was especially so when Shao Chun still had a bright future ahead of him. Despite knowing that a martial sage was holding down the fort, he still risked his life and rushed over. Let's go. There is nothing more for us to do here. This wedding is just a farce for the Wan clan. The guests that came all scattered, heading for the gates of the Wan clan's palace. The experts guarding the underground treasure room of the Wan clan's palace all fell to the ground. Their corpses were all dead from one fatal strike. In the treasure room, a group of black-clothed men were excitedly plundering the treasures in every corner of the room. One of the black-clad people was particularly eye-catching. His large body was forced to wear black clothes, which looked extremely awkward. He looked like he might burst at any moment. Young master, unexpectedly, it is so easy to break through the Wan clan's treasure room. We are rich this time. That fatso chuckled and said, that brother Shao of mine is too awesome. He injured all the 8 great guardian deities. Otherwise, we would not have come so easily. The group of people were like hungry wolves entering a sheep's den. They moved around continuously, and the various treasures in the treasure room disappeared quickly. Normally, there were many people who targeted the Wan clan's headquarters. However, with the 8 great guardian deities guarding it, practically no one succeeded. Today, the 8 great guardian deities were all severely injured. Kim Tae-ho led the Jin clan's martial monarchs to launch a sneak attack. This was a great bargain. If the Wan treasure tower knew that the treasure room was ransacked, he would probably die from anger. The treasure room contained half of the Wan clan's wealth. Who knew how long it would take for the Wan clan to recover from such a loss? High in the sky above the Wan clan's plaza, Wan Feng's master, the extreme old man, looked down at the mess below expressionlessly. The Haotian sect's elder Feng stood quietly behind him. Old Feng, this time, your Haotian sect has really recruited a genius from the lower realm. I reckon that he is not much weaker than the true disciples of your sect. Old Feng smiled faintly and said, Senior Extreme Yin speaks too highly of him. Compared to the geniuses recorded in Bushin Palace, his accumulations as a martial king are still lacking. Furthermore, he has not experienced a truly grand occasion. The extreme old man said, these words are not wrong. Whether it is a true dragon or not, we can only know after the baptism of the Kunlun realm. After a pause, the extreme old man said, you should go. Although this old man's reputation is not good, I still have this much magnanimity. I will not make a move against an insignificant martial monarch. When old Feng heard this, he heaved a sigh of relief. Although the old man before him looked amiable, he was infamous in the Kunlun realm. Even the cultivators of the other races feared him. Shao Chun had defeated his little disciple in front of everyone. Old Feng worried that the old man would not be able to resist making a move. If that happened, even if Shao Chun had a divine weapon, only death awaited him. Many thanks, Senior. After obtaining a definite answer, Old Feng bowed slightly. Then, he turned into a beam of light and flew back to the Haotian sect. After Old Feng left, the extreme old man's expression suddenly sank. He looked in the direction of Nzishuan and muttered, unexpectedly, this fellow is related to the experts of the fiend race. Xiao. The extreme old man withdrew his gaze and thought for a while. Then, he stopped thinking and casually tore space apart. He appeared on a roof and smiled coldly as he looked at Wan Feng, who was wearing a pair of red floral underwear. When Wan Feng felt the gaze from above, he looked up. His body trembled involuntarily as he said, Master, this disciple has embarrassed you. I only ask for a quick death. The extreme old man smiled coldly and said, why would I kill you? It was not my tacit approval. Who in the Sky Dome realm can injure you? Wan Feng's expression froze. He exclaimed, Master, you saw everything. The extreme old man nodded without batting an eyelid. He said, in the future, you won't be so arrogant anymore, right? Even a lion needs to use its full power to capture a rabbit. You are not a lion yet, so where is your dog's hit pride coming from? What is the use of thinking about all these crooked paths for cultivation? You will not be able to achieve anything great. In the future, break off all ties with the Wan clan and focus all your attention on cultivation. If anyone slaps your face, slap them back 100-fold, 1,000-fold. Wan Feng suddenly understood what the extreme mean old man was trying to do. The other party had clearly seen all of his actions. The extreme mean old man wanted to use this opportunity to teach himself a lesson. On the other hand, he wanted to temper his mental state. Many thanks for Master's teachings. This disciple will definitely turn over a new leaf. I will not embarrass the extreme Yin sect again. The extreme Yin old man did not say anything more. He casually grabbed Wan Feng and flew off into the distance. As the powerhouses left one by one, the farce of the Wan clan's wedding officially came to an end. At the border of the Great Jin Nation and the Great Qin Nation, Yingyu had been waiting with the Imperial Dragon Legion for a long time already. After handing Wan Feng over to the other party, Xiaoqian flew to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion alone. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion was as calm as usual. No one knew that Xiaoqian, who had just returned, had done such a shocking thing in the boundless distance. Senior, fortunately, I did not disappoint you. I did not lose the divine weapon. When Xiaoqian felt the power of the divine weapon, he felt even more grateful to Leng Tianyun for lending him the divine weapon. Leng Tianyun was not in a rush to receive the divine weapon. He looked at Xiaoqian's injuries and said, "Don't be in a rush to leave. Let me take a look at your injuries." After a series of battles, especially when he used the strength character formula to execute the blue dragon returns from the sea, Xiaoqian's injuries had reached a horrifying level. Leng Tianyun placed his right hand on Xiaoqian's meridians and carefully checked them. He exclaimed in shock, "Your physical body is extraordinarily strong. If other martial monarchs acted as recklessly as you did, they would have died long ago. However, your situation is not much better now. There is still half a month before we leave the Sky Dome realm. During this period of time, you should stay here and focus on recuperating." Leng Tianyun personally made a move. He used his origin energy and the peak medicinal herbs that the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had accumulated to help Xiaoqian recover quickly. 7 days later, Xiaoqian had completely recovered from all his injuries. He was brimming with energy and vigor. The battle at the Wan clan's palace had given Xiaoqian many comprehensions. This was especially so when he fought with Wan Feng. Wan Feng's will of ice had given him a lot of inspiration. Before martial monarch, only cultivators with a peak state could be considered geniuses. Only then could they fight above their cultivation realm. However, when one reached martial monarch, states were commonplace. Only by raising their states to a will could they fight above their cultivation realm. Wan Feng could treat martial monarchs like they were nothing. Aside from his accumulated quintessence, which was much higher than that of the Sky Dome realm's martial monarchs, the most important reason was his comprehension of the will of ice. If Wan Feng's will of ice could improve further, even with the Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram and the 33-fold increase in combat prowess, victory would still be difficult for Xiaoqian. "I have to make good use of my time and comprehend my will of ice," Xiaoqian said with a resolute gaze as he clenched his right fist tightly. After making up his mind, Xiaoqian immediately went to look for Leng Tianyun. With such a martial sage around, it would be a waste not to seek his guidance. When Leng Tianyun found out why Xiaoqian was here, he could not help but laugh loudly. He said, "How old are you? Already, you want to comprehend a will?" Xiaoqian could not understand. He asked, "Could it be that the will has something to do with age?" Leng Tianyun nodded and said, "It does not have anything to do with age. However, some people live for 500 or 600 years and become a martial sage. Even so, they might not be able to comprehend their will. Raising a state to a will depends on talent, breadth of vision, and fortuitous encounters. Talent goes without saying, it is a person's comprehension ability. Since you can create the four-season saber technique, your comprehension ability is definitely not bad. The so-called breadth of vision is the experience of a cultivator. The great thousand realms are boundless. There are all sorts of mysteries, countless. How much do you think you have experienced? Even if you have achieved all that, without the right opportunity, you will never be able to comprehend your own will. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. However, he felt a little suspicious. He asked, that welcoming envoy, Wan Feng, is only 3 or 4 years older than me. However, he already touched the threshold of a will. Why is that? Ling Tianyun smiled faintly and said, that is not a will. If I remember correctly, the extreme Yin sect has a special cultivation technique that can strengthen the state of ice. It can raise the might of the peak state of ice by 20%. If you really comprehended a will, you would not be a match for him. 10 years ago, I advanced to martial sage. Even in the Kunlun realm, my talent is considered outstanding. However, I have not comprehended my own will. To think that a will is so difficult to comprehend. Xiao Chen frowned heavily. Unexpectedly, even Ling Tianyun has not comprehended a will of his own. In terms of talent and breadth of vision, the other party should be pretty good. In that case, the time for fortuitous encounters has not arrived. Ling Tianyun stood up and waved his hand. A cool breeze immediately blew in the room. As the cool breeze circulated, it carried a gentle warmth that made one feel relaxed and comfortable. Xiao. Suddenly, Ling Tianyun stretched out his hand and tapped. The cool breeze blew gently, but it contained a bone-chilling chill. The strength of the wind did not change, but when it struck the body, it felt even more painful than a knife. Boom! Ling Tianyun stretched out his hand again, and a strong wind blew, buzzing loudly. Even the room trembled intensely. Chi! 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 In that instant, the strong wind stopped and turned into thousands of thin wind arrows, riddling the entire room with holes. Sunlight shone in through the holes. When the thousands of light beams intertwined, they formed mottled shadows on the ground, illuminating the room. When Xiao Chen saw all this, he could not help but feel astonished. The simple wind could produce so many scenes in Ling Tianyun's hands. Given Xiao Chen's current cultivation, he would not be able to do so within 10 years. Xiao Chen could blow out a cool breeze or send out a berserk palm wind that could flip the roof off. However, he could not do it as freely as Ling Tianyun did. Ling Tianyun withdrew his hand and stood upright. He muttered, I have already touched the threshold of the will of wind. All I need is a fortuitous encounter, and I will be able to break through. You cannot imitate the earlier demonstration. Just treat it as broadening your horizons. There is a huge difference between thunder and wind. How you comprehend it depends on yourself. Xiao Chen quickly performed a cupped fist salute in thanks. This demonstration had indeed made him feel enlightened. He discovered that his previous way of thinking was too limited. Chapter 641. In a few days, you will be going to the Kunlun realm. I have a request. Xiao Chen said, Senior, please speak your mind. If I can do it, I will do my best to do it. There was a trace of worry in Ling Tianyun's eyes. He muttered, however, during the Golden Age, there will be a great calamity. However, the 5,000 years of Golden Age will slowly come to an end amidst peace. However, the laws of history will not change. The great calamity this time might be a great calamity that happens once every 10,000 years. In the future, if you really manage to ascend to the Great Tao, I hope that you will take care of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Xiao Chen smiled bitterly and said, the Great Tao is difficult, harder than ascending to the heavens. Senior's words are too far-fetched. The so-called great calamity is just overthinking it. Ling Tianyun sighed softly, I am not overthinking it. 10,000 years ago, there was a vast demonic calamity. The Tianwu dynasty, which had been glorious for tens of thousands of years, vanished like smoke. The 9 dragon veins of the Tianwu continent escaped, and the spiritual energy of the world turned chaotic. Even today, it has not recovered. Xiao Qin still felt that Ling Tianyun was exaggerating. However, after thinking for a while, he still agreed. If one day, I really manage to ascend to the Great Tao, I will definitely not sit by and watch the Heavenly Saber Pavilion ignore me. After leaving Ling Tianyun's room, Xiao Qin spent another half a day refining the countenance-halting pill. Then, he handed it to Lu Riyue. His train of thought had expanded significantly. Xiao Qin decided to leave and spend the last moments of his time in the Sky Dome realm at Thunder Emperor Valley. He wanted to see if he could find his own fortuitous encounter in the immortal will that the Thunder King left behind. Tears welled up in Lu Riyue's eyes as she hugged Xiao Qin, unwilling to let go for a long time. Xiao Qin, will this be an eternal parting? Xiao Qin felt a slight sourness in his heart. He wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes and smiled. Definitely not. Wait for me to return. This night, the two spent a long time together. As Lu Riyue slept soundly, Xiao Qin gently kissed her forehead. Then, he put on his clothes and left quietly. Before the sky brightened, Xiao Qin took one last look at the beautiful Qingyun Peak. He had too many memories on this peak. After this parting, Xiao Qin did not know when he would be able to return. However, he had to go to the Kunlun realm. No matter how reluctant he was, he could only hide the bitterness in his heart. Let's go. Since ancient times, sages have always been lonely. From the moment you decided to walk the path to the peak of cultivation, you were destined to be lonely, Ao Jiao said softly from the lunar shadow saber. Back then, she had witnessed the rise of the Thunder King. Now that a similar situation had occurred once again, she was filled with mixed emotions. Xiao Qin took a deep breath, no longer reluctant to leave this mountain and grass, and bid farewell. When Xiao Qin flew over Saber City, he discovered a girl standing at the top of the city wall. When he looked carefully, it was Feng Feishue, dressed in men's clothing. She had a faint smile on her face as she watched him fly in the air. Xiao. Xiao Chen's figure flickered, and he instantly landed on the city wall, standing across from Feng Feishue. Feng Feishue took out a spatial ring and handed it to Xiao Chen. She said, the dragon phoenix cauldron that you left with me. All the materials that the Feng clan has for refining secret treasures are in there. Finally, there are 100,000 superior grade spirit stones. I hope they will be of help to you. 100,000 superior grade spirit stones was a large sum. Right now, Xiao Qin only had a total of 80,000 superior grade spirit stones on him. Xiao Qin urgently needed superior grade spirit stones. Be it for cultivation or as currency after he went to the Kunlun realm, they would be very useful. Many thanks. Feng Feishue smiled gently and suddenly kissed Xiao Qin on the lips. She said, take this kiss as a token of my thanks. Now that I have complete control over the Feng clan, I will help you look after the Heavenly Saber Pavilion and the Xiao clan. Xiao Qin touched his lips and could not help but smile. I only found out today that this kiss of mine is so valuable. Do you want to kiss me a few more times? Feng Feishue blushed and giggled. I would not dare to mess around. That person from your clan would kill me. Let's go, stop being so wishy-washy. As the sun set, Xiao Qin arrived at Thunder Emperor Valley. When the many old men in Thunder Emperor Valley saw Xiao Chen's arrival, they were startled. Several of them were the old men that Xiao Qin had knocked down previously. Without saying anything, these people immediately scattered, leaving one by one. These fellows are really cowardly. It is as though you will eat them up. With such courage, what fortuitous encounters can they obtain in Thunder Emperor Valley? Ao Jiao said indifferently. Xiao Qin found a place to sit down cross-legged. He said calmly, it is good that they left, it is peaceful. Thunder roared in Xiao Chen's ears, and a horrifying might spread out. The will of thunder wandering in the clouds did not show any signs of dissipating even after thousands of years, as though it would exist forever. Suddenly, Xiao Qin had an idea. He said, Ao Jiao, do you think that if I subdue this will, I will comprehend the will of thunder? Ao Jiao snorted coldly and said, that is easy for you. Since it is the immortal lightning, how can it be subdued by others? Unless your strength surpasses that of the Thunder King back then. Xiaoqin smiled and did not say anything more. He closed his eyes and started to comprehend. The half-step martial monarchs that Xiaoqin chased away did not go far. They all floated a kilometer away from Thunder Emperor Valley, smiling coldly as they looked at Xiaoqin. This fellow is really reckless. Thunder Emperor Valley never allows cultivators above martial monarch to remain. Let's wait and see how the lightning strikes him to death. That is the immortal divine lightning. Even a peak martial monarch would not be able to withstand it. When he dies, we will split the treasures on him evenly. Xiaoqin did not open his eyes. However, he sent out his spiritual sense and clearly heard the expressions of these people, as well as what they said. He smiled faintly to himself and ignored them. As the successor of the Thunder King, he had the lunar shadow saber to back him up. How could the immortal divine lightning attack him for no reason? These people were probably going to be disappointed. In the ancient desolate land, a man carrying a sword on his back walked calmly on the surface of the vast heavenly extermination lake. As this man walked, ripples spread out on the surface of the water. White clouds drifted in the clear sky. However, there was a pitch-black mark in this paper-like sky, looking very out of place. When one got closer, one would discover that the mark was actually a thick patch of black clouds. Below the thick black clouds was an island shrouded in yin qi. When the youth carrying the sword looked at the scene in front, he smiled faintly and said, "The headquarters of the Dark Church is not much different from what I expected." This person was Chu Chaoyun, who had not appeared for a long time after the Five-Nation Youth Competition. For some reason, he actually appeared here. Behind Chu Chaoyun stood several strong cultivators with unfathomable auras. Among them were the Sacred Heavenly Church's bishop, the mysterious master of the Devil Savannah's Black Knights, and the Black Dragon Group's chief. At this moment, all the influential major characters stood behind Chu Chaoyun. However, they all appeared strangely respectful. In a secret room of the palace on the island, a man shrouded in black cheese sat cross-legged. If one looked carefully, one would discover that this black-clad man's appearance actually resembled Xiao Chen's. Xiao. An image of the black-clad man sitting cross-legged stood up. The image slowly turned solid and soon looked no different from the real person. The black-clad man pushed open the door to the secret room. The guard standing at the side was startled and said, "Church Master, you are out of closed-door cultivation. Quickly, go and inform the Church Master. It is just a clone. There is no need to make a big fuss about it." The black-clad man smiled faintly and walked forward. Soon, the Church Master rushed over with a group of disciples. When they saw this person, they immediately knelt and said, "Church Master, why did you come out of closed-door cultivation?" The black-clad man waved his hand, and a formless energy instantly wrapped around this group of people. He said, "Come with me to meet the guest." Hu Qi. The mysterious black-clad man from the Dark Church waved his hand and led the group of people into the air. In a few breaths, they arrived before Chu Chaoyun. The mysterious black-clad man looked at Chu Chaoyun and smiled faintly. Interesting. Unexpectedly, a group of descendants of the Tianwu dynasty that I destroyed 10,000 years ago came to work with me today. Chu Chaoyun smiled faintly and said, "As long as our goal is the same, it does not matter who we work with. However, your strength disappoints me." ZZ. Right after Chu Chaoyun spoke, a golden flame suddenly burned in Chu Chaoyun's eyes. A golden heavenly flame poured out and instantly set the black-clad man ablaze. The might is pretty good. Unfortunately, it is too slow. This insignificant clone of mine can easily dodge it. The mysterious black-clad man reappeared before Chu Chaoyun and smiled. Then, he used his palm as a saber and thrust it at Chu Chaoyun's chest. Dang! A golden light descended from the sky and turned solid. The black-clad man's palm stabbed into Chu Chaoyun's chest, giving off a metallic sound that shook the sky. Ka-xie. Ka-xie. The materialized light shattered inch by inch like a mirror. When it landed on the calm surface of the lake, it erupted into pillars of water that soared into the sky. When the light scattered, the mysterious black-clad man smiled faintly and said, "Not bad. Your comprehension of the ancestors' technique is not bad. You too." Back then, the sword strike of the Qing emperor did not cripple you. Chu Chaoyun retorted, not showing any fear of this person. He said, "Cut the nonsense. Open the gates to the demonic world." The mysterious black-clad man said unhurriedly, "There's no rush. We still have to wait for one more person. Without her, even if you go to the demonic world, you will not be able to learn the high-ranked martial techniques of the demon race." Who? Just at this moment, a girl wearing a purple dress and a veil descended from the distant sky. This girl had a purple mark on her forehead. Her spirited eyes were very captivating. With just one glance, one's heart surged with emotions, wanting to sink into it forever. Chu Chaoyun showed a startled expression. He felt a formless danger from this girl. He asked, "Who is she?" "Leng Yu, one of the 18 demon monarchs of the deep abyss demonic world," the black-clad man said indifferently. As the sun rose and set, the rumbling thunder in the Thunder Emperor Valley never stopped. It has already been 5 days. Why is this fellow not dead yet? This is illogical. This is really strange. For the past 5 days, we have not moved a single step. However, that immortal divine lightning seems to recognize this brat. Nothing happened to it. I feel a little dizzy. My essence is almost depleted. If we continue waiting like this, before this brat dies, we will fall into the sea. Let's wait a little longer. This fellow is a true dragon-grade sovereign genius. He must have a lot of spirit stones, medicinal pills, and treasures on him. Indeed. This opportunity is hard to come by. This is a free benefit. The half-step martial monarchs waiting for Shao Chen to be struck by lightning were almost out of essence. However, they still gritted their teeth and waited with intense anticipation. Chapter 642. Up in Thunder Emperor Valley, Shao Chen opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with purple electricity. In the past 5 days, Shao Chen's understanding of lightning had improved by another level. Originally, there was no lightning in the world. Lightning was not like wind, fire, or water, which existed for a long time. Only when wind and clouds gathered would lightning appear. Lightning did not exist in isolation. If there was no wind and no clouds, there would be no lightning. It was just like the immortal divine lightning above Thunder Emperor Valley. Without the dark clouds that moved with the wind and lingered for a long time, no matter how powerful the Thunder King was, his will of thunder would not be able to last forever. After comprehending this point, a vague image of the will of thunder appeared in Shao Chen's mind. Although Shao Chen had not formally grasped the basics, he now had a general direction. He would not be as confused as before. In the blink of an eye, half a year has passed. Today, I have to gather at Dragon Sealing City, Shao Chen muttered as he stood up. Shao Chen glanced at the half-step martial monarchs waiting for him to be struck by lightning. He could not help but find it funny. Xiao. Shao Chen pushed off the ground, and a blue dragon image appeared. As it moved up and down, Shao Chen silently arrived behind these people. He smiled and asked, "Old sirs, what are you all waiting for? What else can we be waiting for?" "Waiting for that brat to be struck by lightning, of course," an old man said dispiritedly. When these people turned around and saw Shao Chen behind them, they paled and retreated in fright. "Ha ha! You are not very capable, but your heart is very vicious. In that case, I will let you have a taste of being struck by lightning first." Shao Chen stretched out his hand and pointed. Winds and clouds moved in the sky. The clouds clashed, and a bolt of lightning descended from the sky, blasting the person who spoke into the water. Only when the clouds move can there be lightning. However, clouds cannot move without wind. Hence, there needs to be wind. Xiao Chen thought to himself. Then, he casually executed the comprehensions he had gained in Thunder Emperor Valley. Instantly, lightning flashed. A group of half-step martial monarchs waiting for Xiao Chen to be struck by lightning were struck by lightning. They cried out miserably as they fell into the water, charred black. Let's go, to Dragon Sealing City. Seeing that the old men were all struck by the lightning, Xiao Chen did not make things difficult for this group of people. He stood on the blue dragon and headed for Dragon Sealing City. Gulp, gulp. Xiao Chen walked far away. On the surface of the sea below, there was a burst of bubbles. One by one, black and swarthy heads popped out of the water like refugees. They still did not understand each other. Feeling confused, they said, that shouldn't be the case. Why is it that this brat is not struck by lightning, but we are? In the sky above Dragon Sealing City, the Bushin Palace's jade ship was overflowing with light. Celestial music lingered in the surroundings, and colorful clouds drifted. The thick, dark clouds that had not melted for 10,000 years were split into two halves. Golden light shone from the center and poured down. Every building in the simple and unadorned Dragon Sealing City seemed to be covered in a layer of golden paint, looking very beautiful. The geniuses of the Sky Dome realm in the top 20 of the True Dragon ranking stood at the bow of the ship. As they looked at the boundless Sky Dome realm, they were all in high spirits and felt very nervous. In the vast Sky Dome realm, there were thousands of heroes. However, only the 20 of them could obtain the opportunity to enter the Kunlun realm. What kind of glory was this? However, they also felt very nervous in the depths of their hearts. After suffering at Xiao Chen's hands, they now had a clear understanding of their own strength. Perhaps if they went to the Kunlun realm, the pride that they had for the past 20-odd years would be gone forever, vanishing into the crowd. However, everyone here was a strong and confident person. The anticipation and desire in their hearts far outweighed their nervousness. No one believed that they would lose. As long as they had a chance, even if they went to the Kunlun realm, they could still rise up and obtain the glory that belonged to them. There was no need to worry so much when they were young. As long as there was a dream in their hearts, no matter how cruel this world was, there was nothing to fear. At this moment, Yu Chenxi and Old Feng were looking into the distance. It was clear that they were waiting for someone. Gong Yangyu stood behind the two with a calm expression. His sect was much weaker than the Haotian sect in the Kunlun realm, it was only a rank 8 sect. After setting some conditions with his sect, Gong Yangyu decided to go to the Kunlun realm. That was to say, he headed straight for the Haotian sect. If he went to his own sect, the treatment he would receive would be better. In a relatively small and weak sect, it would be easier for him to gain the attention of the upper echelons. If he went to the Haotian sect, where there were more geniuses, the competition he would face was something that the main sect could not compare to. The treatment he received would be worse as well. This was a choice between being the head of a chicken or the tail of a phoenix. In the end, Gong Yangyu chose the latter. Actually, most of the people here chose the latter as well. Those whose sects had not reached rank 9 were prepared to look for a better place. A smile appeared on Yu Chenxi's face as he said, "He is here." Gong Yangyu recovered his wits and quickly looked over. He saw a figure in the distance standing on the image of a blue dragon. As the figure moved up and down, it traveled 1 kilometer. This figure quickly flew towards the jade warship. That person looked very graceful and extraordinary. He did not reveal himself, but he gave off an unfathomable feeling, one that no one could defeat. Naturally, this person was the top ranker of the True Dragon ranking, the white-robed bladesman who dominated the younger generation of the Sky Dome realm and defeated Wan Feng, the king-grade True Dragon genius, Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen is here. It was not just Yu Chenxi but also the gazes of everyone else focused on Xiao Chen. This white-robed bladesman seemed to always be able to create miracles. Back then, at the Wan clan's plaza, the many outstanding young talents had been humiliated by Wan Feng. Although they were not convinced, they all suffered miserable defeats at his hands, unable to retaliate at all. Only Shao Chen, after defeating 36 martial monarchs and the 8 great guardian deities, still had the strength to defeat Wan Feng. Shao Chen managed to gain some glory for the youths of the Sky Dome realm. Sorry, I'm a little late. Shao Chen looked around at the situation. He had not expected the others to arrive so early, so he said apologetically to Old Feng. Old Feng smiled gently and said, "There's no rush, there's no rush. There are people who came even later than you." Shao Chen looked carefully and discovered that there were already 19 people in the top 20. Only Chu Chaoyun was nowhere to be seen. Strange, given Chu Chaoyun's talent, it would be too much of a pity if he did not go to the Kunlun realm. Shao Chen thought doubtfully. At the same time, he felt somewhat disappointed. Shao Chen and Chu Chaoyun had not truly determined a victor yet. The battle on the wind cloud platform was just the beginning. In the future, when the two of them reached the peak, there would definitely be another battle. If Chu Chaoyun did not go to the Kunlun realm, he would only be left far behind, never able to catch up. I'm not waiting anymore. He is just a lower realm genius, and he dares to put on airs in front of me. If he does not go, then so be it. Bushan Palace does not lack people like him. The extreme old man's displeased voice came from the ship's hold. Hu Qi. The instant the extreme old man spoke, the jade warship immediately soared into the air. Then, it flew at an extremely fast speed towards the boundless golden light above. The thick, dark clouds that had been split in half slowly merged together like two pieces of the ceiling. Finally, they merged completely, and a huge shadow covered Dragon Ceiling City once again. Time passed slowly. Only when the Age of Geniuses began would the dark clouds above Dragon Ceiling City open again and send down a golden light. The dense golden light surrounded the jade warship. The many cultivators on the warship, including Shao Chen, were all very curious as they looked around. However, all they could see was golden light. They could not see anything special about it. How exactly did this warship reach the Kunlun realm? Xiao. After an unknown period of time, the surrounding golden light suddenly dissipated. Boundless stars and a vast heavenly river appeared before everyone's eyes. Normally, no one dared to look at the blazing sun. However, at this moment, it was just a small ball of fire in everyone's eyes. It looked very wondrous. From time to time, huge flying rocks with long tails whizzed past everyone's eyes. The scene was quite thrilling. The jade ship was surrounded by a transparent golden membrane, protecting it from being hit by the flying stones. This is the starry heavens. As someone from the modern era, Shao Chen discovered that the starry heavens here could not be measured by the knowledge of Earth. A jade warship could float in the starry heavens. No matter how much the people of that world imagined it, they would not dare to believe it. When Shao Chen looked back, he discovered that the original Sky Dome realm was actually just a small stone stele with talisman scripts shining on it. Shao Chen was sure that the size of that stone stele surpassed that of the jade warship. However, the radiance it emitted enveloped all the stars in it. Such a strange scene left people puzzled even after much thought. After we pass the whirlpool in front, we will reach the Kunlun realm. Old Feng's voice came from behind Shao Chen. Shao Chen looked to the front. At some point in time, a 7-colored whirlpool had appeared in the boundless starry heavens. At some point in time, a 7-colored whirlpool had appeared. This whirlpool was incredibly huge, comparable to a planet. Old Feng said gravely, Shao Chen, Yu Chenxi, and Gong Yangyu, now that we are here, I should tell you about the situation of the Kunlun realm. The group quickly listened, not daring to miss out on anything. Aside from humans, there are many other races of various sizes in the Kunlun realm. The Kunlun realm is ridiculously large, it would not be an exaggeration to describe it as boundless. The region that our human race controls is the Tianwu domain. For the sake of resources, the various domains frequently erupt in great wars. The Bushan Palace is a faction formed by all the sects of the human race. It is the supreme sect that rules the Tianwu domain. You don't have to know about the other races and the larger domains for now. Just the Tianwu domain is more than enough for you to explore. You might not even be able to finish exploring it in your lifetime. Gong Yangyu asked out of curiosity, how big is the Tianwu domain? Compared to the Tianwu continent, it is slightly bigger. When Gong Yangyu heard this, he could not help but laugh loudly. He said, there is no comparison at all. The Tianwu domain has 108 continents. Even the smallest continent is larger than a nation in the Tianwu continent. The slightly larger continents are the size of 2 nations. This is just the places with human habitation. If we include some desolate mountains and ancient remnants, it is even larger. When Xiao Qian and the other 2 heard this, they could not help but be flabbergasted. Just the Tianwu domain of the human race was already so large. In that case, how large was the entire Kunlun realm? I'll say one last thing. You are all geniuses. Otherwise, the Haotian sect would not have called you in. But if you want to do nothing, and the Clear Sky School directly spends resources to support you, that is absolutely impossible. It is the same for the other sections. If you want to obtain more resources, you need to bring out your strength to prove yourself and stand out from the other disciples. Chapter 643. Old Feng's last sentence sounded extremely grave. Yu Chenxi and Gong Yangyu exchanged glances. They both felt a trace of seriousness in each other's eyes. Xiao Qian, on the other hand, did not feel much. He had already expected this. Regardless of whether it was the genius disciples of the Haotian sect in the Tianwu domain or the luck geniuses from the other great thousand realms, the Haotian sect would not be able to defeat them. In this great world, there were definitely no mediocre people. The competition would probably be even more intense. In a situation where the resources were equal, the only way was to stand out. He had to show that he was more worthy of nurturing than others in order to get what he wanted. As everyone on the bow of the ship cried out in alarm, the jade ship entered the rainbow vortex with a whoosh. Everyone felt a powerful suction force. In front of that force, their bodies were unable to resist at all, and they were disintegrated into countless particles of various sizes. At this moment, his soul and body were separated. He could still think, but he couldn't control his own body. Such a strange state was extremely frightening, but fortunately, it didn't last for long. The particles of his body, big and small, reassembled like a platter. His body returned to his control, and the world before him suddenly opened up. In the boundless sky, a huge sun hung high in the sky. There were many mountains and cities on the ground. The tall buildings were as small as ants. Looking from above, the Kunlun realm was no different from the Tianwu continent. My cultivation base seems to have increased a little. It has become more condensed. Me too. Earlier, it felt like the veritable essence energy in my body was reorganized. Several of my blocked meridians were cleared. This is the Kunlun realm. The many young Sky Dome realm cultivators on the bow of the warship all spoke excitedly, their faces filled with excitement. Xiao Qian circulated his quintessence and discovered that it was indeed so. His cultivation had advanced to early stage inferior grade martial monarch. The circulation of quintessence in his meridians became smoother, saving him half a month of bitter cultivation. Old Feng smiled faintly and said, "The rules of the lower realm and the upper realm are different. The first time you enter, everyone's cultivation will receive some benefits. Although it is not much, it is better than nothing. Properly experience the spiritual energy of the Kunlun realm. Before you go to Bushan Palace, you should get used to it." Even without Old Feng's instructions, the many youths on the bow had already closed their eyes and sat down cross-legged, greedily absorbing the spiritual origin around them. Xiao Qian was not in a hurry to sit down cross-legged. Instead, he circulated the true essence in his body and made a grabbing motion in the air. A water ball formed from spirit chi appeared in his palm. The light blue ball of water was plump and full. It contained a large amount of heaven and earth spiritual chi. Xiao Qian muttered, with just a casual grab, there is already so much spiritual energy. It is more than 10 times stronger than the great Jin nation, which is rich in spiritual energy. Pooh! With a flick of his hand, Xiao Qian poured quintessential essence into the ball of water. It spun and shot into the distance before exploding. The water ball turned into droplets of rain and dispersed in all directions. Not even a faint ripple appeared in the space. Strange. In the sky dome realm, I can tear space with a casual strike. Earlier, I infused a drop of compressed quintessential essence into that ball of water, but there was not even a ripple in space. Shock flashed in Xiao Qian's eyes as he muttered to himself. The space of this Kunlun realm seemed to be much firmer than that of the Sky Dome realm. The restrictions of the natural laws on cultivators were even greater. Let's try again. This time, Xiao Qian got serious. He exhausted 50% of his quintessential essence and 60% comprehended saber intent. Then, he used his fingers as a saber and sent out a strand of sharp saber chi to the side. The sharp saber chi was like a rainbow piercing through the sun. Soon, it vanished before Xiao Qian's eyes, disappearing in a flash. Wherever it passed, faint ripples would appear on both sides. Ripples would appear in the space around it, as if a stone had been dropped onto a calm surface of water. At this point, Xiao Qian was certain that the space of this Kunlun realm was much firmer. If one compared this empty space to a building, then the space of the Sky Dome realm was a wooden building, and the building here was a tall tower made of steel. The two could not be compared at all, the difference was too great. Xiao Qian withdrew his hand and said softly, in such a tight and firm space, cultivation progress, flying speed, and the might of martial techniques will all be greatly restricted. No wonder Wan Feng's quintessential essence was so pure. The heavenly Tao's restrictions on cultivators were much stronger than in the lower realms. Given this, the lower realm cultivators were naturally at a disadvantage compared to the geniuses who were already used to the Kunlun realm's laws. If there were any arrogant and unruly people who were not convinced by the local geniuses, they would immediately be taught a severe lesson. In the distance, two girls stood on an azure one covered in flames. The girl on the right wore a green dress. She was very pretty and had an otherworldly air. She appeared quiet and cute. This girl was already a rare beauty. However, the girl on the left, wearing a red dress, was even more beautiful. Her skin was fair, her teeth were sharp, and her eyebrows were like a blazing flame. As the azure wand flew quickly, a sharp saber chi with a flourishing aura flew over from the side. The girl on the right reacted very quickly. She flicked her finger, and a resonant phoenix cry rang out. Then, a fiery sword chi shot out from her fingertip. The fiery light was dazzling, and the sword chi was like a rainbow. When it clashed with that saber chi, it quickly melted. After a while, the saber chi turned into mist and scattered. The girl on the left asked in shock, who sent out that saber chi? To think that elder sister Nuan had to use the vermilion bird holy flame. The girl with the family name Nuan looked at the jade ship that was already far away. When she saw a blurry white figure, she said softly, this strand of saber chi contains not only dense quintessential energy but also a 60% comprehended saber intent. If I want to casually destroy it, I have to use the vermilion bird holy flame. At the same time, the girl with the family name Nuan felt somewhat astonished. She recognized the symbol of that jade ship. It was the escort ship that passed by Bushin Palace. If there were no surprises, this strand of saber chi came from one of the lower realm geniuses on the ship. However, there is no killing chi. It should be a casual probing from someone from the lower realm. That is not a problem. I will bring you to the proud son of heaven ranking. Let's go. As Xiao Qian pondered, the youths on the bow all opened their eyes. Their eyes shone with great confidence, and some of them even laughed out loud. What dense spiritual energy! No wonder that Wan Feng is only an inferior grade martial monarch, but he surpasses us by so much. His accumulations are simply too bountiful. That's right. Give us some time, and we will definitely surpass him. It is not that his talent surpasses ours. Rather, he has been in the Kunlun realm longer than us. Sooner or later, we will teach him a lesson. After cultivating for a while, the cultivators felt a lot of spiritual energy in their bodies. Lofty aspirations filled their hearts, sweeping away all the nervousness in their hearts. Their expressions were filled with excitement as if they had come back to life. Xiaochen frowned slightly and did not say anything. Wan Feng's strength was not that simple. Even in the Tianwu domain, Wan Feng's state of ice, which surpassed the limits, was not something that just anyone could grasp. Furthermore, everyone could obtain spiritual energy. In the Kunlun realm, it was like cabbages. There was no need to be so excited. In the end, they are all youths. Their mental states are not mature enough, Old Feng said softly as he shook his head. Boom! Just at this moment, boundless golden light came from the front. A huge palace floating in the air appeared before everyone's eyes. The surroundings of the palace were shrouded in mist, causing the mysterious palace to appear somewhat hazy. When the group got closer, they discovered that the signboard above the palace read, Bushin Palace South Gate. We have arrived. All of you, quickly go down. The elders of your respective sects will inform you of the arrangements for the remaining matters. The extreme old man's voice came from the warship's hold in an indifferent manner. Old Feng said, go down first. I'll bring you to Bushin Palace to register yourselves. After that, we will attempt to enter the proud son of heaven ranking. Just as Xiaochen was about to leave, he suddenly felt an intense, hateful gaze. He turned his head to look, and the windows of the warship were open. Wan Feng looked at Xiaochen coldly, a boundless hatred gathering in the depths of his eyes. That hatred surged like a flood, extremely terrifying. It felt like even if Wan Feng ate Xiaochen alive, he would not be able to resolve the hatred in his heart. Xiaochen found it strange. Where does this fellow get so much hatred from? I merely defeated him in front of everyone. If he is not satisfied, he can just challenge me again. There is no need for him to show such a horrifying gaze. Naturally, Xiaochen did not know that Kim Taeho humiliated Wan Feng. Wan Feng blamed the humiliation of that day on Xiaochen. If Xiaochen had not severely injured Wan Feng first, how could Wan Feng have been beaten to the point of kneeling and admitting his mistakes by someone like Kim Taeho, whom Wan Feng could easily crush? Xiaochen, let's go, Yu Chenxi reminded when he saw Xiaochen in a daze. Xiaochen withdrew his gaze and smiled in response. Then, he jumped off the warship with Wan Feng. Wan Feng clenched his right fist tightly and said coldly, I'll let you be cocky for now. When I break through to medial grade martial monarch, I will definitely go to the Haotian sect to take revenge. Amid the dense spiritual fog, the majestic palace gave off a faint golden light. It looked like a paradise on earth. From a distance, the floating Bushin Palace looked like the forbidden city of Xiaochen's previous world, floating in midair. Pavilions, terraces, and halls filled the city. Simple and imposing buildings lined the streets, one after another. One could even vaguely see tall mountains, lakes, and rivers. Rather than a palace, it was more like a miniature continent. Under the lead of their sect elders, the participants on the warship arrived at the south gate of Bushin Palace. 2 rows of golden-armored warriors with deep cultivations stood below the simple and imposing gate. They expressionlessly inspected the cultivators lining up to enter the south gate. Occasionally, people rode on spirit beasts and descended from the sky. There were also all sorts of small birds with overwhelming spiritual energy flying by in flocks. When one looked carefully, one would be shocked to discover that the feathers of these unremarkable birds flickered with dazzling light. The spiritual energy in their eyes indicated that they were actually rank 7 spirit beasts. Some of the bolder birds did not fear the cultivators on the ground. They flew around the crowd and chirped non-stop. When the young cultivators of the Sky Dome realm arrived at Bushin Palace, they all looked around curiously. Chapter 644. Old Feng did not find this strange. He smiled gently and led the three past the long queue, going directly to the golden-armored guards. After handing over their identity documents and identity medallions, the guards at the south gate let Xiao Chen and the others through. They did not even have to queue. Purple gold vine. A purple gold vine that is at least 1,000 years old. Unexpectedly, it is planted by the roadside, and its fruits are all ripe. There is also the fire dragon tree. It is at least 1,000 years old. White profound flower. After entering, the group could not help but exclaim when they saw the spirit trees and flowers casually planted by the roadside. When they looked around, they saw the spirit trees and spirit herbs that were very valuable in the Sky Dome realm growing everywhere like weeds in the vast Bushin Palace. Xiao Chen was not too astonished. Spirit trees that could be casually planted by the roadside were definitely not rare. Since they were in the Kunlun realm, they could not look at things from the perspective of the Sky Dome realm. Old Feng led the three through a few familiar streets in the Bushin Palace. Soon, they arrived at a majestic hall. The plaque above the door read, "Proud Son of Heaven Pavilion." After entering the hall, Old Feng got the three to wait for a while he went to get their identity medallions. The few of them felt bored as they waited. There were also some cultivators around their age who were waiting excitedly. "Are you cultivators from the lower realm?" 3 cultivators, male and female, walked over and asked the three curiously. The one who asked the question was a pretty girl. This girl was about 24 or 25 years old. She was already an inferior grade martial monarch. Her aura was very stable, not chaotic at all. Clearly, she had advanced a long time ago. The three exchanged glances. Then, Yu Chenxi made the introductions. "Yes, we are from the Sky Dome realm. I am Yu Chenxi, he is Xiao Chen, and he is Gong Yangyu. I am Bai Shi. These two are my junior brothers, Bai He and Bai Yu. They are from the rank 8 sect of the Jingzhou province, Baiming Palace." The girl's smile did not diminish as she introduced them warmly to the three. When the 2 male disciples behind her heard that Xiao Chen and the others were from the Sky Dome realm, they revealed disdainful gazes. "I thought it was the geniuses of the 10 great battle realms. So, it is the last-ranked Sky Dome realm. Senior sister Bai, let's go." "There is nothing to say to them." The Baiming Palace disciple named Bai Yu said faintly. Bai He also said, "The people of the Sky Dome realm want to enter the Proud Son of Heaven ranking? That is simply impossible. What a waste of an opportunity." White Brook unhappily said, "How can you two speak like that? How rude." "Ha! In that case, senior sister, you can just waste your time here. We'll go make our preparations. Once senior brother brings back the Sage Sky Lantern, we'll attempt the Proud Son of Heaven ranking." The two of them didn't even look at Xiao Chen and the other two. They just turned around and left. Xiao Chen and Ao Jiao learned a little about the 10 great battle realms as they chatted. Of the 600 great realms that the Bushin Palace controlled, the 10 great battle realms were the top 10 great thousand realms. There were countless experts in the battle realms. Many of them were natural combat geniuses. Every year, the experts of the battle realms would enter the Kunlun realm, making a name for themselves in the competitive Tianwu domain. The battle realms had already become a signboard. The people who came from the battle realms were publicly acknowledged to be extraordinary. Even the people of the Tianwu domain wanted to befriend them. "My apologies. My 2 junior brothers are rather proud and arrogant. However, they are definitely not vicious people," Bai Shi said apologetically. This was not the first time Xiao Chen met such realistic people. Given his mental state, these two would not affect him at all. He smiled faintly and did not say anything. Yu Chenxi felt dissatisfied in his heart. However, when he saw Bai Shi's sincere attitude, he did not say anything. He changed the topic and said, let's not talk about this. Elder sister Bai Shi, can you tell us what this proud son of heaven ranking is? Bai Shi was very enthusiastic. She smiled and said, naturally, I can. The proud son of heaven ranking is a ranking that measures the strength of the young cultivators in our Tianwu domain. It is the most authoritative ranking. In the Tianwu domain, as long as you are not older than 40, you have a chance to make it onto the ranking every year. After you make it onto the ranking, not only will you become famous in the Tianwu domain, but you will also receive many benefits. The first benefit is that the Bushin Palace will give you spirit-gathering pearls and medicinal pills as a monthly reward based on your rank on the ranking. The second benefit is that as long as you make it onto the ranking, you will obtain the will of an ancient sage. The ancient sage was as strong as a martial emperor. This will enter your sea of consciousness and save your life at a critical moment. The third benefit is the one that has the closest relationship with you all. If you can make it onto the ranking, you will receive more attention after you enter the sect. When the group heard Bai Shi's explanation, they could not help but feel anticipation for the proud son of heaven ranking. Senior brother is here. Come, let's go quickly. After cultivating for 3 years, I must make it onto the ranking. Just at this moment, Bai Yu and Bai He rushed over. Bai Shi smiled and said, my first senior brother is here. I will take my leave first. Xiao Chen and the others turned their heads to look and saw a young swordsman with an extraordinary air and unfathomable cultivation. 3 lanterns floated in front of him as he slowly walked over. The group also saw Old Feng behind that young swordsman. There were also 3 lanterns floating in front of him. Old Feng walked over and said to the 3, come, follow me to the sage's wall to make it onto the proud son of heaven ranking. Following Old Feng's footsteps, the 3 arrived before a wall in the middle of the hall. There were many paintings of sages on this wall. An ancient aura came from it, making them feel solemn and heavy. They did not even dare to breathe too loudly. There were 1,000 lanterns arranged in a pyramid shape on the wall. When the lanterns lit up, the sages on the wall shone brightly, making the strong auras of the sages even more prominent. As for the wick, it was an eye-opener for the 3 of them. They were actually miniature figures made of flames. Although the flaming figures were small, as long as one focused, the figures in the lanterns would be magnified infinitely. It was like they were real people, imprinted in one's mind. The first row had only 1 lantern, the second row had 2 lanterns, and the third row had 4 lanterns. The 1,000 lanterns were arranged according to this pattern. The 3 lanterns at the very top had golden wicks. The light from their flames was the most dazzling, practically overshadowing the light from the other lanterns. Each lantern represented an outstanding talent of the Tianwu domain. With these 3 people occupying such positions and giving off such light, it would be hard not to notice them. Old Feng sighed softly, you should have heard of the masters of those 3 lanterns. They are the holy son and holy daughter of the 3 holy masters. The one at the very top is the divine martial gates Feng Wuji. The 2 below are the phoenix's passion palaces Nuan Muyun and the white emperor cities Shao Hoju. Old Feng continued, the 3 holy masters are a sovereign sect that is even stronger than the 9 ranks of the great families in the Tianwu domain. They are also the only 3 sovereign sects in the Tianwu domain. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows slightly. When he thought of his blue dragon martial spirit, he could not help but enter deep thought. The 3 holy masters are probably even stronger in the Tianwu domain. However, most people would not compare themselves to them. The ranking of the 7 giants of the Tianwu domain's younger generation does not include these 3. Normally, it is very difficult to meet these 3. Old Feng pointed to the 7 lanterns at the bottom row and said, these 7 people are either from the 9 ranks of the great families or from rank 9 clans. They are all very strong. The weakest is a superior grade martial monarch. The one with the strongest cultivation would be able to withstand many moves from a martial sage and retreat calmly. When Xiao Chen heard this, he could not help but feel startled. It was clear that it was much harder to raise one's cultivation in the Kunlun realm than in the Sky Dome realm. Martial monarchs were also much more valuable. The difficulty of fighting someone of a higher cultivation realm was not something that the Sky Dome realm could compare to. It was almost impossible. With Xiao Chen's current strength, if he met a medial-grade martial monarch of the Kunlun realm, he would have to put in a lot of effort to defeat them. If the other party was also a genius cultivator and had a higher cultivation than Xiao Chen, victory would be hard to predict. These 7 people were all superior-grade martial monarchs and had the backing of the 9 ranks of the great families. Furthermore, they were genius cultivators as well. They could easily kill Xiao Chen. Aside from these, there are also some proud sons of heaven whose strength is second only to the 7 giants. They are heroes among men and are terrifyingly strong. In the Sky Dome realm, even a regular martial sage would not be able to do anything to them. As Yu Chenxi and Gong Yangyu listened to Old Feng's explanation, they felt a strong pressure when facing these 1,000 lanterns. They felt somewhat dispirited. Compared to Gong Yangyu and Gong Yangyu, Xiao Chen also felt immense pressure. However, he did not feel dispirited at all, his expression did not change. When Old Feng saw Yu Chenxi and Gong Yangyu's expressions, he smiled faintly and said, "Don't overthink this. The average lifespan of the Kunlun realm's cultivators is 200 years. So, even 40 years old is still considered part of the younger generation. The average age of the 1,000 people on the proud Son of Heaven ranking is 30 years old. Compared to them, you are still too young. This is your first attempt at the proud Son of Heaven ranking, just to let you broaden your horizons. I do not expect you to obtain any results." As Old Feng spoke, the other participants of the Sky Dome realm, Bai Qi, Lu Xiaoyun, and the others, arrived before the wall under the lead of the various sect elders. Everyone had newly obtained identity medallions at their waists. The words Sky Dome Realm were written on the back, so the surrounding people knew their origins. So they all stopped and watched them attempt the proud Son of Heaven ranking together. Beiming Palace's Baiyu smiled and said, "There are quite a few people from the Sky Dome realm. However, I do not see a single medial-grade martial monarch. No wonder they are ranked last." Bai He added, "They are unable to break through to medial-grade martial monarch in the lower realm. This means that their aptitude is not very good." "Senior Sister Bai, you are still chatting so intimately with them. You are lowering your own status." Bai He is right. Given their talent, even if they enter the 9 ranks of the great families, they will only be outer sect disciples. At best, they will be inner sect disciples. Although our Beiming Palace is only a rank 8 sect, you are all true inheritors. There is no need for you to befriend the minor characters of a large sect. The young swordsman behind the 3 said slowly, "Befriend experts of similar strength to you and exchange pointers with them. Only then will you be able to improve together." When Bai He and Lu Xiaoyun heard the young swordsman's words, their smiles widened involuntarily. Seeing their first senior brother lecturing them, Bai Shi lowered her head, not daring to say anything more. Chapter 645. Ha! The people of the Sky Dome realm are here to attempt the proud Son of Heaven ranking as well. Let's wait and see. Anyway, I came quickly and left quickly. I won't have to wait for long. The surrounding cultivators of the Tianwu domain's native sects all stood silently at the side with the intention of watching a joke. Damn it, a bunch of snobs looking down on me. I'll just charge forward and show you. Immediately, 2 people felt extremely dissatisfied. They picked up their lanterns and dripped their blood onto them. The lotus immediately ignited into flames. The appearance formed by the flames was the exact same appearance of the 2, just that they were many times smaller. Go! When the 2 of them felt the suction from the wall, they shouted angrily and hurled their lanterns at the wall. When the 2 lanterns were 200 meters away from the wall with countless human sages painted on it, the shadows of 2 human sages suddenly leaped out of the wall. The images of the 2 predecessors went from large to small. Soon, they were the same size as the flames in the lanterns. Then, they each leaped into a lantern. The palm-sized space above the lotus flower seemed to have become a world of its own. The figure of the sage and the little flame person started exchanging blows. Bang! In just a breath of time, the two lanterns' flaming figures suddenly shattered. The lanterns that had lost their wicks immediately tumbled to the ground. The two Sky Dome Realm cultivators who made a move revealed horror in their eyes. They paled and each vomited a large mouthful of blood. Ha ha ha, you can't even pass the basic test, yet you still dare to shamelessly say that you want to enter the rankings. The young cultivators of the Tianwu domain's native sects all laughed loudly, their gazes filled with mockery. Bai Yu and Bai He nearly bent over in laughter. They said loudly, "These two pieces of trash are making me laugh to death. They can't even block a single move from the sages, yet they still have the nerve to attempt the honor roll. If it were me, I might as well find a piece of tofu and knock myself to death." The two people's faces alternated between green and purple. Amidst the laughter of the local martial artists, they were extremely ashamed. Following that, the Sky Dome Realm cultivators who came out to try and break into the proud Son of Heaven ranking felt very motivated, doing their best to prove themselves. However, they all failed. In the foundational test, they were defeated one after another. The one who performed the best could only last for 10 moves. Even so, they were unable to avoid the destruction of the wick, and they fell to the ground pathetically. Yu Chenxi and Gong Yangyu also went up to try it. In the end, the image of the sage broke the wick and defeated them. Next up were Bai Qi and Xianyuan Zhantian. They managed to regain some face for the Sky Dome realm. After the two of them lasted 20 moves, they finally cleared the foundational test. However, in the process of officially breaking into the ranking of martial emperors, the last lantern in the last row of the pyramid shattered the wick of the two lanterns, failing to break into the ranking of martial emperors. The surrounding people all revealed expressions of, as expected. How could the Sky Dome realm, which was ranked last, succeed in breaking into the proud Son of Heaven ranking? Make way! Make way! You geniuses of the Sky Dome realm, stop embarrassing yourselves here. Go back and train for a few years before coming back to make a breakthrough. Bai Ming Palace's Bai Yu and Bai He held their lanterns and waved their hands to disperse Bai Qi and the others who were blocking their way. You haven't made your move yet. The two of them parted the crowd and saw Xiao Chen, who was preparing to make a move on the ranking board. They asked with a strange expression. Bai Yu and Bai He had waited for a long time. They had seen enough of the joke and did not wish to waste any more time. He said extremely impatiently, "Don't overestimate yourself. Do you think that this is your last ranked Sky Dome realm? In this life, you will never have a chance to enter the proud Son of Heaven ranking. Scram!" As he spoke, he prepared to push Xiao Chen away. However, just as he was about to touch Xiao Chen, suddenly, Xiao Chen turned his head around and unleashed his peak state of massacre. His pitch-black eyes seemed to contain countless evil spirits wailing miserably. "I don't like people touching me when I'm trying to break into the rankings." Xiao Chen's tone was extremely calm, and he did not release any of his aura. Only the boundless killing intent penetrated their eyes and entered their minds. The two of them could not help feeling fear. Their bodies involuntarily took a step back. What a terrifying gaze! The two of them exchanged glances, clearly in disbelief. The fellow on the other side clearly had the same cultivation as them. How could he scare the two of them away? Seeing that the two of them had retreated, Xiao Chen immediately withdrew the peak state of massacre. He had just arrived in the Kunlun realm and was not strong enough. He did not want to cause too much trouble and wanted to keep a low profile. Bai Yu felt some lingering fear in his heart, but he did not want to embarrass himself. He said, "I'll let you try. Let's see what tricks you can play. I don't believe that the trash of the Sky Dome realm can successfully break into the proud Son of Heaven ranking on his first try." The surrounding native cultivators of the Tianwu domain did not believe that Xiao Chen could succeed in breaking into the proud Son of Heaven ranking. After all, many of the people on the proud Son of Heaven ranking were already in their 30s. In the Kunlun realm, the average age of cultivators was more than 200 years old. Hence, people before 40 were considered part of the younger generation. Right now, Xiao Chen was only 21 years old. Compared to these people who had been cultivating in the Kunlun realm since he was young, the difference in experience was too obvious. Old Feng looked at Xiao Chen, who was preparing to break into the proud son of heaven ranking. He felt some anticipation in his heart. He had expected the others not to succeed. The Tianwu domain was vast and boundless. There were tens of millions of cultivators in the younger generation. The 1,000 people who could stand out from these tens of millions would definitely not be weak or mediocre. Furthermore, due to age and experience, these people would not be able to accomplish much on their first try. They just needed to broaden their horizons. As for the humiliation they received, the various sect elders had actually done so on purpose to deal a blow to these people. These arrogant youths who had just arrived in the Tianwu domain clearly understood their situation. However, Old Feng believed that Xiao Chen, the white-robed bladesman who always created miracles, would not disappoint him. Xiao Chen looked calmly at the sage wall and the 1,000 lanterns on it. Then, he took a deep breath and sliced open the palm of his right hand. Blood flowed along the lines on his palm and slowly fell on the lantern. With a "pu" sound, the blood instantly burned and turned into a beautiful clump of flame. In a daze, Xiao Chen felt the mental energy in his sea of consciousness flow away as the blood dripped. When the flame on the lantern turned into a human shape, Xiao Chen discovered that he was already on the lantern. The lantern, which was originally only the size of a palm, was now a world of its own. It did not feel out of place at all. Interesting. I wonder who made this lantern. After giving it a try, Xiao Chen discovered that he could still control the lantern. He could end this state with a thought, so there was nothing to fear. When Xiao Chen felt the suction of the sage wall, he stood on the lantern and shouted. Then, the lantern carried him up into the air. He overestimates himself. This fellow still wants to attempt the sage ranking. He probably cannot even pass the test of the sage wall. That's right. He is still trying to block our path. He is just wasting time. Seeing Xiao Chen's lantern fly up, Bai Yu and Bai He immediately called out loudly. Earlier, the two of them had been forced back by Xiao Chen's gaze. After being forced back by a minor character, they felt very embarrassed. They wished that Xiao Chen's lantern would be thrown down before he could attempt the sage ranking. That would resolve the hatred in their hearts. Bai Shi, who had kept her head down, looked up and discovered that her first senior brother was watching seriously as well. She could not help but ask out of curiosity, "First senior brother, will that Xiao Chen succeed in breaking into the sage ranking?" The blue-clad youth with an extraordinary air had a cautious look in his eyes. He was no longer as certain as before. Perhaps others had not noticed Bai Yu and Bai He's actions earlier, but he had seen it clearly. This was already the fourth time Bai Yu and Bai He attempted the sage ranking. They had already advanced to inferior grade martial monarch long ago. In terms of cultivation, they would only be higher than Xiao Chen's. Furthermore, the blue-clad youth was very clear on the temperaments of these two. It was impossible for them to be forced back by just one sentence from Xiao Chen. There was definitely something strange about this. The blue-clad youth said, "It is hard to say. However, they should be able to pass the test of the sage ranking. As for whether they can enter the sage ranking or not, I am not sure." Xiao. The lantern flew up a distance, and an old man with white hair and eyebrows on the sage wall suddenly came to life. In that instant, he shrank and landed on the lantern platform. In the world above the lantern platform, Xiao Chen placed his right hand on his saber hilt. He did not dare to be careless when facing this white-haired old man. "I will restrict my cultivation to one cultivation grade lower than yours. If you want to enter the proud son of heaven ranking, you have to receive 20 moves from me first." Right after the white-haired old man spoke, a sword appeared in his hand. His figure flashed, leaving behind many afterimages as he chopped at Xiao Chen. The light on the sword was withdrawn. When the old man chopped down, he sent out 7 sword images. Each sword image split into 3 afterimages. In that instant, there were 21 real and fake sword images encasing Xiao Chen. As the wind howled, a fiery light flickered. The boundless sword images looked like a blazing sea of fire. Xiao Chen was astonished. What a profound martial technique! This move not only contained an extremely high level of sword techniques, but it also perfectly merged the state of fire that he comprehended with the sword technique. This allowed the original martial technique to reach a higher level, completely transcending it. This was an eye-opener for Xiao Chen. To think that martial techniques could be used in such a manner. Excellent. Senior's move is indescribably excellent. In that case, this junior will display his incompetence. When Xiao Chen saw such an excellent sword technique, he felt very happy. He had already forgotten about the test to break into the proud son of heaven ranking. He only wanted to test out the true essence of this sword technique and see what he could learn. The instant the lunar shadow saber was drawn, Xiao Chen could not separate his sword images. He could only rely on speed to obtain victory. Despite moving later, he arrived first, sending out 21 saber strikes. As the saber lights danced, Xiao Chen imitated the old man. He infused his state of thunder into every strand of saber light. The boundless saber images formed a sea of electricity leaping about. However, this was Xiao Chen's first time using it, so this sea of electricity was very crude. There was only a vague outline, far from the spirituality and nature of the sea of fire. The white-haired old man raised his eyebrows slightly. He smiled faintly and said, "Little fellow, interesting. However, this sword light sea of fire chop is not as simple as it looks on the surface." Dang! 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 When the saber and sword clashed, they gave off a continuous metallic sound. The white-haired old man's 21 illusory sword images were all blocked by Xiao Chen. However, that sword technique did not stop there. A blazing sea of fire burst out and easily destroyed Xiao Chen's sea of electricity. The sea of fire surged forward as if it wanted to swallow up Xiao Chen. The more dangerous part was yet to come. Within the blazing sea of fire, there was a sharp sword light hidden by the fire. It stored up power, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Chapter 646. I cannot retreat. Once I retreat, even if that sword light does not kill me, it will still put me at a disadvantage. Xiao Chen had already forgotten that he only needed to endure 20 moves to clear the stage. He was now fully immersed in the fight, thinking about the drawbacks of the situation. Xiao Chen gathered quintessence in his body and forcefully endured the sea of fire. He extended his spiritual sense and quickly searched for that sword light. Boom! Even with the protection of quintessence, every inch of Xiao Chen's skin felt a burning pain. However, he ignored it and focused on searching for the hidden sword light. Found it! Xiao Chen's face lit up in joy. He did not give his opponent a chance to make the first move. He released a sharp saber intent, and electricity leaped about in the sea of fire. Then, he clashed with the sword light that had not reached its peak yet. Bang! When the saber and sword clashed, there was a loud clanging sound. The light scattered and instantly scattered the sea of fire. Countless sparks flew in all directions. The white-haired old man moved back, retreating 100 meters in the blink of an eye. He stood upright with his sword in hand, not injured at all. On the other hand, although Xiao Chen managed to knock back the old man, his hair and eyebrows were burnt yellow. He looked somewhat strange. The white-haired old man smiled faintly and said, "Little fellow, are you bullying me because my cultivation is not high? How dare you be so reckless?" Xiao Chen felt somewhat embarrassed. The old man was right. If he had used the same cultivation as Xiao Chen, that sea of fire would have severely injured Xiao Chen. That flaming sea of sword images could severely injure Xiao Chen. There was no chance for him to find the hidden sword light. However, your comprehension ability and eyesight are not bad. Again. The white-haired old man laughed loudly and sent out another sea of fire at Xiao Chen. However, This time, he raised his cultivation to the same cultivation as Xiao Chen, breaking the rules. Xiao Chen followed the old man's example, using the lunar shadow saber to execute this sea of lightning saber light and attacking again. Bang! This time, the sea of lightning created by Xiao Chen's saber light lasted for 3 breaths of time before shattering. Xiao Chen, on the other hand, was sent flying by the sea of fire. Within the sea of flames, another swift and fierce sword light flashed like a gorgeous rainbow, and when it slashed towards his forehead, it slightly tilted to the side and sliced off a strand of his black hair. Hee, not bad. Again. The white-haired old man appeared to be in high spirits. When he saw that Xiao Chen could last 3 breaths of time in the sea of lightning this time, he was delighted. Laughing heartily, he waited for Xiao Chen to regain his footing before charging forward once more. Xiao Chen knew that the old man had held back when he saw the wisp of hair falling from his forehead. He became even more interested in the sword light fiery shadow. Soon, the 20 moves were over. However, Xiao Chen's lantern continued to float in the air, not showing any intention of falling. What's wrong with this fellow? He has already lasted for so long, and there is still no result. The surrounding crowd felt that something was wrong and asked suspiciously. However, Baiyu laughed loudly and said, "What's so strange about that? He must be flying around after getting killed, trying to delay for time." The crowd thought about it and felt that this was the only possibility. 20 moves would not take a long time. Unless Xiao Chen knew that he was not a match for the white-haired old man and used his movement technique to move around, not receiving any attacks. Bai he said disdainfully, "If you are not capable, then so be it. To think that you are purposely delaying for time, not willing to admit defeat. So, the geniuses of the Sky Dome realm are like this." The moment Bai he said this, the many Sky Dome realm cultivators were dissatisfied. However, they were not strong enough. Even though they felt indignant, they did not dare to argue. When the two saw this, they could not help but feel even more cocky. They looked at the Sky Dome realm's people with extreme disdain. Yu Chenxi said through clenched teeth, "Vile people are proud. Isn't it just because you are older than us by a few years?" Bai Yu laughed loudly and said, "With your standards, if you train for another 10 years, I will be able to defeat you in 10 moves. I will be waiting for you to challenge me at Baiming Palace. However, I'm afraid that you do not have the guts. Junior brother, you overestimate her. I believe that she will not even be able to receive 1 move from you. She will never have the guts to go to Baiming Palace," Bai He said softly. After Bai He and Bai Yu spoke, they both laughed at the same time, making Yu Chenxi furious. "All of you, shut up!" The blue-clad youth behind Bai Shi suddenly shouted. His voice was cold and emotionless. When Bai Yu and Bai He thought of the blue-clad youth's methods, they were startled and shut their mouths. Bai Jian. He is one of the people on the proud Son of Heaven ranking, second only to the 7 giants. Unexpectedly, he is the one leading Baiming Palace's people to charge into the ranking. Earlier, the blue-clad youth had stood there with an extraordinary air. However, he had his own methods that prevented everyone from noticing him. Now that the blue-clad youth spoke, everyone discovered that he had been standing there for a long time. The blue-clad youth nodded to Old Feng in apology. Then, he pulled Bai Yu and Bai He behind him. "Are the 2 of you idiots? The old men behind them are inner sect elders of the 9 ranks of the great families. They can squash you to death with 1 hand. I don't care about you, but don't drag the Baiming Palace into this." When the 2 heard Bai Jian's reprimand, they lowered their heads, not daring to argue. The lantern was still floating before everyone's eyes, swaying back and forth without any intention of stopping. Soon, some people started to get impatient and started to complain. Bai Yu and Bai He lined up behind Xiao Chen. They were even more impatient, cursing at Xiao Chen's lantern. Sea of lightning saber light. On the lantern, Xiao Chen shouted ferociously and swung the lunar shadow saber 21 times. Each saber strike materialized a dazzling electric light. When combined, it was like a roaring sea of lightning. Compared to the white-haired old man's sea of lightning saber light, Xiao Chen's sea of lightning saber light was only slightly lacking in nimbleness. Over time, it would be similar. Bang! The sea of lightning and the sea of fire clashed and exploded into surging shock waves. The instant the sea of fire scattered, the hidden sabers and swords disappeared in a flash. The two figures crossed each other in the air. When the sabers and swords clashed, sparks flew out. The sword chi and saber chi turned into ripples, creating boundless ripples in space. Ha ha! Not bad. You have finally scratched the surface of my flaming shadow chop. When this move is truly executed, you can send out 99,000 sword images. The will of fire will spread for 500 kilometers around. The sword in the fire can even split the sky in half. Today, I have exchanged 100 moves with you. I am afraid that for the next 100 years, I will not be able to test the newcomers. However, I have no regrets in passing down this move. In the future, when you are strong enough, remember to leave your will on this sage wall as well. After the white-haired old man spoke, he turned into a beam of light and scattered. Among the many sage wall paintings, the one belonging to the old man slowly dimmed. However, no one noticed this. Everyone's attention was focused on Xiao Chen's lantern, as it finally stopped floating and slowly descended. Bai Yu immediately cursed, "Damn it! I already said it long ago. If you are not capable, don't drag this out. No matter how long you drag, you will not be able to change the result of failure. It is my turn now, Xiao." However, before Bai Yu could finish speaking, that lantern descended to the bottom row of the proud son of heaven ranking. Then, it quickly flew to the last lantern. Bai Yu's expression suddenly changed. He was stunned for a while before he exclaimed, "That's impossible. How did this fellow pass the test? Wasn't he clearly being chased?" The others were shocked as well. They could not figure out what had happened. However, no matter what, Xiao Chen had passed the test and was preparing to challenge the last rank. This truly happened before everyone's eyes. No one could change it. The eyes of the many young cultivators of the Sky Dome realm could not help but light up, feeling encouraged. He patted Bai Yu's shoulder and said, "It's fine. Even if he passed the test by luck, he will not be able to truly succeed. We have been able to easily clear the sage's test since many years ago." Bai Yu recovered his wits and said, "That's right. This fellow comes from the last-ranked Sky Dome realm. How could he succeed on his first try?" Xiao Chen's lantern clashed with the last lantern, giving off a melodious sound. That fiery figure gently leaped up and landed on the last lantern. The world above the lantern was a vast desolate land. A black-clad man sat cross-legged in the center with his eyes closed. A sword was stabbed into the ground beside him. When that figure sensed Xiao Chen's arrival, he suddenly opened his eyes. His gaze turned cold as he glared at Xiao Chen with a surging murderous intent. "Kill." That person did not say anything. He held his sword and leaped up, thrusting it at Xiao Chen. The sword light was dazzling and dense. Not a single bit of quintessence leaked out. The fiery figure left in the lantern imitated the main body. It was no different from a cultivator. It had intelligence and could think, it just could not leave the lantern. Earlier, this person had quickly defeated Bai Qi and Xianyuan Zhantian. Xiao Chen did not dare to be careless, so he did not clash head-on. Xiao Chen pushed off with his feet, and a blue dragon image appeared. A dragon roared, and his figure flashed, dodging this sword strike. Xiao! 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 As Xiao Chen dodged continuously, the black-clad man's moves became increasingly vicious. He was like a venomous snake biting Xiao Chen, not letting go. After another 100 moves, Xiao Chen had a rough idea. This person was about as strong as Wan Feng. At best, he was slightly stronger. Xiao Chen stopped and placed his right hand on his saber hilt. He muttered to himself, "In that case, there is no need for me to continue playing." Seeing that Xiao Chen stopped dodging, the black-clad man revealed a cruel smile. He thought that Xiao Chen had exhausted his stamina and was waiting for him to kill him. Sea of Lightning Saber Light. However, to the black-clad man's surprise, Xiao Chen suddenly made a move. Saber lights danced around. Xiao Chen swung his saber 7 times. Then, each saber light split into 3, turning into 21 saber images. Child's play. The black-clad man smiled coldly. His sword light flickered, and he caught all 21 saber images. Boom! However, just at this moment, the electricity on the 21 saber images merged and formed a sea of lightning. Then, it erupted and surged with the might of thunder. Caught off guard, the black-clad man was blasted by this sea of lightning. He went flying back, his body riddled with wounds. Before the black-clad man could stabilize himself and check his injuries, he saw a flash of light in the sea of lightning. A strand of saber light came out of nowhere. The saber light was as fast as a meteor. Blood spurted out of the black-clad man's neck, and his head separated from his body. With a ka-cie sound, the lantern below shattered into pieces. Only a fiery figure was left standing quietly in the air. Xiao Chen's lantern flew up. Xiao Chen's lantern ascended to the last position of the proud Son of Heaven ranking. When the flame died down, the lantern gave off a faint glow. The flame lingered for a long time. Chapter 647. Bai He and Bai Yu exchanged glances. The Sky Dome Realm's Xiao Chen, whom they had always looked down on, actually succeeded in his challenge. Bai Yu said hatefully, "It must be luck. It must be that the last place is too weak." Bai He said, "It is definitely luck. If he really had the guts, he would have continued challenging." The Tianwu domain cultivators, who originally did not think highly of Xiao Chen, were mildly astonished. Xiao Chen succeeded on his first attempt. Furthermore, he was only 21 years old. This Xiao Chen's talent and comprehension ability could barely be considered an expert in the Tianwu domain. However, they were not overly shocked. This was because Xiao Chen had not truly ascended the ranking yet. He had to remain on the ranking for a month before he could truly obtain the reward of the Bushan Palace, the protection of the will of the predecessors. Xiao Chen was just the last place. The people in this position changed frequently. Every day, cultivators from all over would challenge him. There was no guarantee that he would be pushed down in the next moment. Unless Xiao Chen was strong enough to continue challenging and advance 100 ranks, he could be considered to have firmly ascended the ranking. Inside the lantern, Xiao Chen carefully felt that sea of lightning saber light earlier. He said softly, "A sword move is a sword move after all. It will take some time to change it into my own saber technique." Xiao Chen had sent out 21 saber images in succession. However, the other party had broken it too easily. The saber images that Xiao Chen sent out were not as natural and smooth as the white-haired old man's sword images. If Xiao Chen met with a powerful expert, the other party could attack very quickly and break the saber technique before the sea of lightning gathered. This was a rather obvious flaw. When I have time in the future, I have to think about it. Collecting his thoughts, Xiao Chen looked forward. After thinking for a while, he gave up on the idea of continuing to challenge. Given Xiao Chen's strength, advancing another 200 ranks should not be a problem. However, advancing any further would be somewhat difficult. To Xiao Chen, the last place and the last 200 were both at the bottom. There was no difference, there was nothing to be proud of. After all, Xiao Chen could challenge it once a year. When he was strong enough, he could charge into the top 100. With a thought, Xiao Chen severed his connection with the flame images in the lantern. Then, he returned his focus to his body and said to Old Feng, "Senior, let's go." Old Feng smiled faintly. Indeed, Xiao Chen did not disappoint him. Although he only obtained the last rank, it was sufficient to prove himself. Old Feng smiled faintly. Indeed, Xiao Chen did not disappoint him. Although he only obtained the last rank, it was enough to prove himself. The haze on Bai He's face slowly disappeared, replaced by an expression of, as I expected. He smiled and said, "What did I say? I knew that you managed to get onto the list by luck. How about it? You no longer dare to continue challenging me, right? Watch as I personally chase you off." The people of the Sky Dome realm are not fit to remain on this proud son of heaven ranking. When Chen heard this, Xiao feigned Chen and said, "Up with him." Long Xiao Chen said, "Chen to Chen," and down on at it said. He led Xiao Chen, Yu Chenxi, and Gong Yangyu out of the palace and headed for the Haotian sect's main sect. Damn it! For the sake of breaking into the proud son of heaven ranking, I prepared for 5 years. Now, I am already a peak inferior grade martial monarch. I don't believe that I cannot compare to a trash from the Sky Dome realm like you. Damn it! For the sake of breaking into the ranking of martial monarchs, I prepared for 5 years. Now, I am already a peak inferior grade martial monarch. I don't believe that I am not as good as trash from the Sky Dome realm. Bai He only needed to endure 20 moves to clear the first stage of the sage's test. He had already cleared it many years ago. Soon, Bai He cleared this stage. Then, he quickly flew towards the lantern that Xiao Chen placed on it. Soon, he passed this test and quickly flew towards the lantern that Xiao Chen had placed above. Bai He laughed maniacally on the lantern. Then, his flame image leaped up and landed on Xiao Chen's lantern. On the lantern, Bai He laughed maniacally. Then, the flaming figure leaped up and landed on Xiao Chen's lantern. Kacha! He'd just jumped up, and in less than the time of 3 breaths, Bai He's lantern shattered inch by inch, and his wisp of flame was smashed into pieces. He spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was extremely pale, and his eyes were filled with fear. They left quickly, but they failed even faster. They did not even have time to react and did not know what had happened. Bai Yu asked in confusion, "Junior brother, what's wrong?" "I lost." Bai He was not willing to say much. The shock in his eyes had yet to fade completely. He walked behind Bai Jian in a daze. Outside the proud son of heaven hall, Xiao Chen sensed that someone was fighting with his flame shadow clone in the lotus lantern. However, after leaving the hall, there was no strong mental connection, so he could not see the battle. "Forget it, I'll come back next year. At that time, I'll directly enter the top 100. Xiao Chen shook his head. He could not be bothered to worry about this matter anymore. He sped up to catch up with Elder Feng. Kacha. The next person to challenge the proud son of heaven ranking was Bai Yu. He did not fare much better than Bai He. Like Bai He, he only lasted for a few breaths of time before being chased off. The surrounding cultivators preparing to challenge the proud son of heaven ranking all laughed to themselves. These 2 fellows had been shouting so loudly earlier. They did not care about the other party at all, swearing to chase Xiao Chen off. However, in the end, they did not even last 10 moves before being defeated. Ha! It looks like the people of Baiming Palace only know how to talk. They are useless when it comes to a real fight. A stout man from the rank 8 Frost Mist Pavilion laughed loudly. This made Bai Yu and Bai He feel too ashamed to show their faces. They lowered their heads in silence. Ka! However, the result was only slightly better. After lasting for a while, his lantern shattered, and the wisp of flame vanished. He failed to break into the proud son of heaven ranking. He is clearly just a newcomer from the Sky Dome realm. How can he be so strong? The stout man revealed a horrified expression, his face filled with disbelief. Following that, the other new disciples of the various sects prepared to challenge the proud son of heaven ranking. However, without exception, all of them were blocked at the final stage. The rules of the proud son of heaven ranking stated that one could not challenge someone above one's rank. One had to move up 1 rank at a time. Otherwise, how could a newcomer challenge someone in the top 10 right after making his way onto the proud Son of Heaven ranking? As for Xiao Chen, he stood at the very end. He was like a gatekeeper, blocking the ambitious disciples of the various sects, who were preparing to make a name for themselves, from entering the proud Son of Heaven ranking. Under normal circumstances, the disciples who could definitely make it onto the proud Son of Heaven ranking were all forced to stop. Only at this moment did everyone's expressions change drastically. Their eyes were filled with incomparable shock. Unexpectedly, a newcomer from the Sky Dome realm had such strength. The blue-clad youth, Bai Jian, revealed a meaningful smile. He said indifferently, "Let's go back to Baiming Palace, then." "Senior brother, I have not made my way onto the proud Son of Heaven ranking yet," Bai Shi said as she held her lantern. "There is no need. Let's come back next year. That fellow might not understand the rules of the proud Son of Heaven ranking. He probably does not know what kind of commotion he caused." Bai Jian made it very clear. If Xiao Chen did not leave, Bai Shi would not have a chance to make it onto the proud Son of Heaven ranking. Since Bai Shi knew that he would fail, there was no need to seek humiliation. When Bai Yu and Bai He heard Bai Jian's words, they lowered their heads even more. They wished that they could find a hole to hide in. Today, the two of them had utterly embarrassed themselves. At the start, they had declared that Xiao Chen would definitely not make it onto the proud Son of Heaven ranking. However, not only did Xiao Chen successfully make it onto the proud Son of Heaven ranking, but he even stood at the very end, blocking all the people who came to make it onto the proud Son of Heaven ranking. Outside the proud Son of Heaven hall, a fiery red azure one slowly descended from the sky. Two delicate girls descended nimbly. When the cultivators outside the proud Son of Heaven hall saw the pretty girl in a red dress on the right, they all stopped and looked over. Phoenix's Passion Palace's Nuan Muyun. It really is the Phoenix's Passion Palace's Nuan Muyun. She is probably here to bring a new disciple to make it onto the proud Son of Heaven ranking. The inheritors of the three holy lands occupied the top of the proud Son of Heaven ranking. For many years, no one had been able to shake their position. The ranking of the 7 giants of the Tianwu continent did not include these 3 people at all. This was because these 3 people were much stronger than the 7 giants. A person's reputation was like a tree's shadow. The moment Nuan Muyun appeared, her radiance attracted everyone's attention. Everyone unconsciously stopped what they were doing. Xiao. Just at this moment, a boat floated high in the sky, and 2 men slowly descended. One of them had an ordinary appearance, dark skin, short black hair, and a saber on his back. No matter how one looked at him, he looked extremely ordinary. Only his eyes shone with a pitch-black light. They were filled with a ferocious wildness as if they possessed a boundless explosive power. The tyrant saber Wang Meng. Unexpectedly, one of the 7 giants, Wang Meng, is here as well. What a coincidence! Of the 7 giants, Wang Meng is the best at fighting and the most arrogant. Since the 2 of them brought their disciples to make a breakthrough, there will definitely be a fight. Given Wang Meng's character, he will definitely compete with Nuan Muyun to see whose disciple can make it higher. When the silent crowd saw Wang Meng's arrival, they immediately started discussing him. They seemed to be in high spirits. Nuan Muyun stopped and turned around. Wang Meng. There were not many people in the Tianwu domain who could make her stop. However, this tyrant saber Wang Meng was definitely one of them. Wang Meng smiled and said, "Nuan Muyun, are you bringing your disciples to make a breakthrough?" Nuan Muyun nodded gently. She already expected what the other party would say next. However, she did not fear it. The people she brought all had excellent aptitudes and comprehension abilities. Furthermore, after coming to the Kunlun realm from the Sky Dome realm and cultivating for 2 years, their cultivations were no weaker than the experts of the Kunlun realm. Wang Meng smiled and said, "I heard that the Phoenix's Passion Palace picked up a treasure from the last-ranked Sky Dome realm. How about it? Nuan Muyun, do you have the guts to compete with the junior brother I brought?" Nuan Muyun smiled faintly and said to the girl in green beside her, "Liusu, do you dare to compete? It turned out that this girl in green was the daughter of the previous pavilion master of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, Leng Liusu. For Nguyen Muyun to personally bring her to make a breakthrough, the Phoenix's Passion Palace definitely valued her highly. I will do as elder sister Nguyen says. Leng Liusu's tone was calm, but there was no fear in her eyes. Nguyen Muyun smiled faintly and took out a brocade box with the flip of her hand. She said, since you want to compete, then I will accompany you to the end. However, since it is a competition, there should be some stakes. There is a monarch blood grass in this brocade box. It can refine a cultivator's blood qi and obtain a trace of an ancient sovereign's bloodline to strengthen one's physique. Wang Meng's eyes lit up. Then, he laughed loudly and said, it looks like the monarch blood grass that you obtained with much difficulty in the savage battlefield will have a new owner today. Although my junior brother is only an inferior grade martial monarch, he has a rare fire spiritual body. Chapter 648. Enough nonsense. Wang Meng, take out your stake, Nguyen Muyun said in a deep voice, not afraid at all. Wang Meng also took out a jade bottle and said, there is half a drop of dragon marrow in here. It can also improve one's physique. It is no weaker than your monarch blood grass. If you win, it is yours. The stakes that the two took out were all rare treasures worth cities. The surrounding cultivators who were watching the excitement all had fiery gazes, feeling incredibly envious. Let's go and see who will win. A group of people followed behind Nguyen Muyun and Wang Meng as they headed for the proud son of Heaven Hall. Before the sage wall, the cultivators of the various sects of the Tianwu domain all looked at the last of the 1,000 lanterns. They all felt very depressed. As long as one was on the proud son of heaven ranking, one would be able to obtain benefits. It might be difficult for people like them to reach the top 800 or 900 in one go. However, there was a high chance of making it to the last 100. This was especially so for those who had prepared for many years and only wanted to show their faces on the proud son of heaven ranking. He didn't have any extravagant hopes for the rankings. He just wanted to stand there and feel a little satisfaction in his heart. But now, this little bit of hope was mercilessly blocked by the last lantern, making him sad and dejected. Dong dong dong. The sound of footsteps could be heard coming from afar. When they gathered together, it was very noisy. From the sound, one could tell that at least 1,000 people had arrived. That's strange. Since when did so many people come to challenge the ranking? If one failed, the challenger would suffer serious mental and internal injuries. Under normal circumstances, no one would attempt the rankings unless they were absolutely sure of success. Those who wanted to challenge the roll of honor would have to think thrice before acting, and they would be extremely cautious. Those who came to challenge the roll of honor would definitely not swarm together. Everyone looked back curiously. When they saw the two people leading the group, they could not help but be startled. A moment later, their faces were filled with ecstasy. That's great, Nguyen Muyun and Wang Meng have brought people over to challenge the rankings. The people they brought with them are definitely not weak. It's even possible for them to reach the top 50. Nonsense. Not to mention the 9 ranks of the great families behind Wang Meng, just the disciples of the Phoenix's Passion Palace alone would not be brought out unless they could get into the top 100. Ha ha ha, no matter what, I will definitely be able to push this Xiaoqin down. Fortunately, I had foresight and did not rush to make a move earlier. The group of people hurriedly moved aside, making way for Wang Meng and Nguyen Muyun. Especially those who were not in a hurry to make a move, their faces were filled with excitement. Such a scene astonished the many cultivators that had followed Nguyen Muyun and Chu Feng. After asking around, Zhang Xian understood what had happened. When he looked at the final lantern, he was shocked. When Leng Liusu heard Xiao Chen's name, her body trembled. At first, she thought it was someone with the same name. However, when she looked at the lantern, she noticed that it was a lantern. The flame figure in the lantern quickly grew larger in her eyes. Finally, the white-robed Xiao Chen and Xiao Chen holding the lunar shadow saber appeared before her eyes. Only then did Leng Liusu confirm it. The shock in her heart could not be described with words. Unexpectedly, that young bladesman from back then also came to the Kunlun realm. Furthermore, he caused such a commotion in the proud son of Heaven Hall. Nguyen Muyun frowned slightly and asked, Liusu, do you know this person? Leng Liusu's eyes flickered. She had once heard rumors of Xiao Qin defeating several disciples of the Phoenix's Passion Palace in the outer sect. Afraid that Nguyen Muyun would bring trouble for Xiao Chen if she found out, Leng Liusu hid the truth. He seems to be a disciple of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion as well. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion's Xiao Chen. I have some impression of him. Leng Liusu could not help but find it strange that an insignificant person like Xiao Chen could attract senior sister Nguyen's attention. Nguyen Muyun smiled gently and said, I heard junior brother Mu mention him before. His younger brother was ruthlessly defeated by this person in the Sky Dome realm. If I am not wrong, that strand of saber chi from earlier should be from him. After Wang Meng understood what happened, he laughed loudly and said, interesting. Unexpectedly, there is such a person in the Sky Dome realm. Very good. I like challenges that are difficult. Nguyen Muyun, are you going to chase that brat off first, or should I? A crafty look flashed in Nguyen Muyun's bright eyes. She smiled faintly and said, in that case, I'll let you go first. Wang Meng chuckled, and the fighting spirit in his eyes soared. He said loudly, in that case, it would be impolite to refuse. Ninth junior brother, chase that brat from the Sky Dome realm off. If he is not even as good as a lower realm disciple, he will be embarrassing the sect. Wang Meng's tone was filled with confidence. Wang Wei thought very highly of this ninth junior brother. At the very least, this ninth junior brother could charge up 100 ranks in one go. Taking down Xiao Chen would not be a problem. Wang Meng's ninth junior brother smiled proudly, and a faint flame appeared on his fist. He said, I swear I will not disappoint you. Fire spirit body. It looks like he has a fire spirit body that is at least 60% comprehended. Otherwise, he would not be so confident. With this, Xiao Chen will definitely be chased off. Upon seeing this scene, the surrounding people exclaimed in surprise. Several people saw hope and could not help rejoicing. Hu Qi. In less than the time it took to brew a pot of tea, the ninth junior brother's lantern easily cleared the sage's test before everyone's expectant gazes. The ninth junior brother's lantern knocked down Xiao Chen's lantern with a bang. Then, he gently leaped up and landed on Xiao Chen's lantern. Time passed much slower than everyone expected. The ninth junior brother, who originally thought that he could suppress Xiao Chen, was still unable to end the battle even after 15 minutes. The cultivators who originally had fervent gazes filled with anticipation slowly showed conflicted expressions. After the time it took for half an incense to burn, the outcome of the battle was still undecided. Even the calm Wang Meng could not help but frown. Ka Xie. Suddenly, a crisp shattering sound rang out in the silent plaza. Wang Meng relaxed his frown and smiled. The victor is decided. However, when Wang Meng looked carefully, he discovered that the shattered lantern actually belonged to his ninth junior brother. He had not expected such an ending, so he could not help but be flabbergasted. How can it be like this? The people who were filled with anticipation all sighed. Then, they focused their gazes on Leng Liusu. Unexpectedly, Nguyen Muyun placed her right hand on Leng Liusu's shoulder, preventing her from making a breakthrough. There's no need. Liusu, come back next year. Nguyen Muyun's words shocked everyone. A person brought by a holy land to make a breakthrough actually gave up because of a lower realm genius. Wang Meng smiled coldly and said, Nguyen Muyun, what do you mean by this? Nguyen Muyun faced the many paintings of sages on the wall and said, take a look for yourself. Wang Meng looked in the direction of Nguyen Muyun's finger and saw that one of the paintings had dimmed significantly. If Nguyen Muyun had not pointed it out, it would not have attracted anyone's attention. This is A sage is personally guiding Xiao Chen in his martial technique. Wang Meng cried out hoarsely, startled. Normally, only cultivators with high comprehension ability would attract the attention of sages, causing them to exhaust their will to guide them. There would not be more than 20 such people in the entire proud Son of Heaven ranking. Now, there was one more, Xiao Chen. No wonder Xiao Chen spent so much time in the sage's test. So that is why. We were really stupid at that time. We actually believed what Bai He and Bai Yu said, that Xiao Chen was being chased by a sage and was running around to buy time. Fuck, those two guys are idiots. They made us idiots for once. Everyone suddenly understood. They finally understood everything. They could not help but curse themselves for being too stupid. Then, they cursed Bai He and Bai Yu. In the distance, White Feather and White River, who were rushing back, sneezed continuously. They looked at each other and felt that this was very strange. Ah! Damn it! This is really strange. Why are there so many sneezes today? Bai Yu said depressedly. After he said that, he sneezed again. Bai He said in a low voice, "It can't be. Hundreds of people are scolding us for being stupid, right? We will be fools. What a joke. Then no one in the world would be smart." Ah. Ah. Wang Meng looked at Nguyen Muyun unhappily. She probably saw the dimmed sage portrait long ago and purposely let Wang Meng take the bait. Let's go. We will come back next year. Wang Meng withdrew his gaze and left without looking back. Nguyen Muyun called out to the two, "Wait a moment." Wang Meng felt depressed in his heart. He asked unhappily, "Nguyen Muyun, is there anything else?" "Ha. It's fine. If you admit your defeat, you will not go back on your word, right? Hand over that half drop of dragon marrow," Nguyen Muyun said rudely as she stretched out her hand. What a joke. I did not lose to you. Why should I give it to you? Nguyen Muyun smiled faintly and said, "Both of us lost. According to the bet, we have to put up a good wager. Hand over the dragon marrow. I will get someone to send it to Xiao Chen, along with the monarch blood grass." Nguyen Muyun's tone was calm, but the look in her eyes deterred anyone from doubting her determination. Wang Meng was extremely upset. However, although he was arrogant, he had his own targets. When he faced the other giants, he would have left long ago, ignoring them. However, when he faced the Phoenix's Passion Palace's holy daughter, Nguyen Muyun, no matter how frustrated he was, he did not dare to go against her decision. Wang Meng could only hand over the half drop of dragon marrow to Nguyen Muyun and leave, filled with rage. Today, he had embarrassed himself and lost money. It was all that brat Xiao Chen's doing. Wang Meng thought to himself, "I have to get back at him for this." Nguyen Muyun and Wang Meng were the Phoenix's Passion Palace's holy daughter and the most arrogant tyrant saber of the 7 giants. In the Tianwu domain, they were the focus of attention, the dazzling peak geniuses. This was especially so for Nguyen Muyun. Her lantern had already been in the second row of the pyramid for a long time. Unexpectedly, the disciple that these two brought actually lost to Xiao Chen, a Sky Dome realm cultivator that the outside world did not think highly of, when he tried to break into the proud Son of Heaven ranking. Before this, there was the luck bearer of the 10 great battle realms. On his first attempt, he swept through more than 200 people. Now, there is this Xiao Chen. The Tianwu domain is probably going to undergo a complete transformation. The age of cultivators is not limited to the great 1,000 realms controlled by the Bushin Palace. In the past few years, our Tianwu domain has seen many new young experts as well. The top 100 of the proud Son of Heaven ranking has not changed much for a long time already. I guess that in less than a year, with the growth of these lower realm geniuses, there will definitely be a big change in the rankings. Chapter 649. After Nguyen Muyun and Wang Meng left, the crowd slowly became more talkative. They no longer held back when they spoke. As for the main character of this matter, Xiao Chen, he was on a warship. However, he did not know anything about this. He could only vaguely sense that his lantern had been challenged by many cultivators. However, none of them succeeded. Xiao Chen was still on the proud son of heaven ranking. At this moment, Xiao Chen no longer cared about this matter. He focused all his attention on the Haotian sect, which he was about to reach. He wanted to see what the Haotian sect was like. White clouds flew by in front of Xiao Chen. A gentle breeze blew, and the faint mist in the sky carried traces of spiritual energy. When one opened their mouth and inhaled, they felt refreshed and comfortable. With such dense spiritual energy, it would be hard for the cultivators of the Kunlun realm not to be stronger than the people of the lower realms. In front is the Haotian province, where the Haotian sect is. Old Feng, who was at the bow of the warship, pointed to the front as they crossed a wide river. The Haotian province was one of the few large provinces of the Tianwu domain. It was much larger than the great Jin nation of the Tianwu continent. There were countless cities in the province, and they were all under the jurisdiction of the Haotian sect. Not only that, but the Haotian sect's influence extended beyond the Haotian province. The surrounding smaller provinces would pay tribute to the Haotian sect every year. As for the Haotian sect, they provided them with military protection to prevent these provinces from being harassed by strong demonic beasts, loose cultivators, or high-ranked demons coming out of cracks in the demonic world. At first, when Xiao Chen and the others heard Old Feng's explanation, they felt it was strange. They had not expected the Tianwu domain, which was like a fairyland, to be so dangerous. After hearing Old Feng's explanation, they felt relieved. Some strong demonic beasts were as strong as superior-grade martial sages. The provinces without high-ranked sects would find it hard to defend against these spirit beasts even if they sent out all their forces. Occasionally, ferocious beasts would pass through the Tianwu domain, resulting in the entire province being slaughtered. On the other hand, rogue cultivators were even more dangerous. These rogue cultivators were unrestrained and only thought about how to strengthen themselves. They did things without any scruples. Their minds were already twisted. The things they did were even crueler than demonic beasts, worse than beasts. As for rifts to the devil world, they rarely appeared. However, when they did, they were a rare disaster. Even the prefectures presided over by rank 8 sects would be destroyed. The warship moved very fast. After passing many cities, it arrived at a place surrounded by mountains. The mountains rose and fell, towering into the clouds. The green shadows of the mountains were lush and verdant. Clouds and mist curled around the peaks of the mountains, and the dense spiritual energy of heaven and earth assaulted one's face. The fatigue in their eyes was swept away, and they felt refreshed. So many spirit veins. There are at least 20 rank 3 spirit veins in this mountain. There are countless rank 2 spirit veins and rank 1 spirit veins. There are also a few supreme spirit veins. So many spirit veins. There are at least 20 rank 3 spirit veins, countless rank 2 spirit veins, and countless rank 1 spirit veins. There seems to be a few peak spirit veins as well. Xiao Chen had heard Ao Jiao explain spirit veins in detail before. Rank 1 spirit veins could not produce spirit stones, rank 2 spirit veins could only produce inferior grade spirit stones, and rank 3 spirit veins could only produce medial grade spirit stones. Xiao Chen took a cursory glance at the undulating mountains and could feel many spirit veins running through them. As the spirit veins intertwined, the spiritual energy of the world surged endlessly. It felt like one was bathing in a sea of spiritual energy. The warship continued forward. Suddenly, a vast and majestic city appeared in the mountains. The mountain peaks in front were like towering gates opening one by one. Then, that city suddenly appeared, giving off a breathtaking feeling of the fog scattering and flowers blooming. The city was very large. Logically speaking, there should not be such a large empty space in such a densely packed mountain range. It was as if an almighty being was playing with a sandbox, gently pinching the mountains that were supposed to be there and placing them somewhere else with a flick of his fingers. When old Feng saw that vast city, his eyes filled with sorrow. Ever since he went to the Sky Dome realm, he had not returned to this place for 100 years already. Later, someone will bring you to meet up with the people of the other branch sections. After settling your matters, I will have to rush back to the Sky Dome realm. Old Feng's mood was somewhat heavy. As he looked at Yu Chenxi, it was especially so. Chenxi, there are some things that Martial Uncle has to tell you in advance. If nothing unexpected happens, you and Gong Yangyu will not be placed in the inner sect. Yu Chenxi and Gong Yangyu nodded slightly. Actually, they had already guessed this along the way. Now that they had arrived in the Tianwu domain, their past glory had already lost much of its luster. Yu Chenxi said seriously, Martial Uncle, don't worry. Even if we are placed in the outer sect, Chenxi will persevere and not embarrass Martial Uncle. Old Feng nodded with a smile. Then, he looked at Xiao Chen and said, Xiao Chen, you will definitely be placed in the inner sect. Those people look down on the geniuses of the Sky Dome realm. However, I believe that in less than 3 years, you will definitely be able to obtain the position of a true inheritor. However, you are too sharp, too sharp. It is best for you to keep a low profile for the next 3 years. Although a man does not take revenge, it is never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. When Xiao Chen heard this, he could not help but smile bitterly to himself. He had never thought of purposely causing trouble. Furthermore, he had never considered himself a gentleman. A gentleman was determined by others. However, Xiao Chen only respected his own principles. What did the opinions of unrelated people have to do with him? However, after old Feng left, they would probably not be able to see each other again. Xiao Chen would not refute him, so he nodded to indicate that he understood. Xiao. 2 young men flew over from the city gates. They wore the alternating blue and white robes of the Haoyan sect. They appeared extremely proud. Although they were young, their cultivations were extremely deep. Even Xiao Chen found them somewhat unfathomable, feeling some fear in his heart. When old Feng landed on the bow of the warship, he asked the 4, Are the few of you from the Sky Dome realm? After old Feng stepped forward and stated his identity, he left with one of them, quickly disappearing from everyone's sight. The one who remained introduced himself, My family name is Qin Shao. You can just call me Senior Brother Qin. This time, I am responsible for receiving all the newcomers. I will bring you to your lodgings first. After this person spoke, he turned his back to the 2 and took the lead. Yu Chenxi projected his voice and whispered to Xiao Chen, There are 3 golden threads embroidered on his chest. That is the mark of a true inheritor. No wonder his cultivation is so deep. It turns out that he is a true inheritor, Xiao Chen thought to himself. After entering the city, the 3 could feel the majesty of this city. It was even vaster than the Tianwu continent's dragon-sealing city. The strangest thing was that there was a small city in the sky above the city. 18 inverted mountain peaks circled the city in the sky. Chen Shao introduced from the front, the city in the middle is the inner city of the Haoyan sect. Inner sect disciples can go there once a month. The 18 mountain peaks outside are the residences of the true inheritors. Each mountain peak has a rank 3 spirit veins origin. The true inheritors have absolute control over that rank 3 spirit vein. The moment Qin Shao said that, Xiao Chen and the other 2 could not help but feel shocked. In the lower realm, even a large sect could not control a rank 3 spirit vein. Unexpectedly, a true inheritor could do so here. Thinking about it, if one could use a rank 3 spirit veins origin to cultivate, how fast would one's cultivation speed be? The 3's expressions were within Qin Shao's expectations. He revealed some pride in his eyes as he smiled faintly. Right now, half of the 18 mountain peaks are empty. All of you have a chance. Gong Yangyu immediately asked doubtfully, Why is it half empty? Such a good resource is just sitting there and not being used. Chen Shao replied indifferently, It is better to have nothing than to have something shoddy. If it does not meet the standard, it is better to leave it empty. What standard is it? Why is it so strict? Gong Yangyu muttered. However, Qin Shao did not say anything more. He led the three around the city, giving them a simple introduction of the medicine refining hall, the business district, the auction house, and the like. The western part of the city is the area for outer sect disciples. The eastern part is the area for inner sect disciples. If outer sect disciples have nothing to do, it is best not to go there. Gong Yangyu asked curiously, why? Qin Shao replied calmly, that place is a mix of good and bad people. There are many factions there. In the past few years, for the sake of meeting the standard of a true inheritor, the few peak people have been competing intensely. Several shady methods have appeared. If you really go there, be careful, or they might rob you of all your treasures. Shao Qin entered deep thought. From Qin Zhao's words, it was clear that the standard of a true inheritor was very strict. They had already used all sorts of methods, but half of the 18 mountain peaks were still empty. If the Haotian sect lacked talents, it was clear that the number of cultivators in the Haotian province was not the reason. After familiarizing themselves with the city's environment, Qin Shao led the three to a large courtyard. He said, "Go in, there are still some people from the branch sects who have not arrived yet. When everyone is here, we will assign you to the inner sect or the outer sect." Shao Qin took the lead and entered. When he looked around, he discovered that there were already many people in the courtyard. There were at least 100 men and women in total. Even the weakest among them was much stronger than Gong Yangyu. There were also a few strong auras that made Shao Qin wary, not daring to be careless. There were no chairs in the courtyard, only some bare stone stools. Shao Qin casually found one and sat down. As they sized up the others, several people in the courtyard opened their eyes and started to size up Shao Chen's group as well. When they saw the words "Sky Dome" on their identity medallions, they withdrew their gazes. They revealed disdainful expressions and no longer paid any attention to the three. Suddenly, Shao Qin narrowed his eyes and looked at a skinny, effeminate man. In that instant earlier, that person seemed to have sent out some hidden energy. This person's technique was very ingenious, not causing any fluctuations in space. However, the hidden energy was not directed at Shao Chen, so he did not bother with it. Bang! Just at this moment, there was a shattering sound. Shao Chen opened his eyes and saw that Gong Yangyu had just leaped up, preparing to sit on the stone stool in front of him. In the end, the moment Gong Yangyu touched it, the hard stone stool shattered. Caught off guard, Gong Yangyu fell to the ground with a plop. Ha ha ha! The Sky Dome realm truly lives up to its reputation as a last-ranked sect. The people who come do not even know how to sit. When the skinny man saw the situation, he laughed loudly. Chapter 650. The other young cultivators, who were resting with their eyes closed, opened their eyes. They all revealed faint mockery on their faces. Everyone here would become competitors sooner or later. Thus, no one said anything to stop the situation from developing. Instead, they just waited and watched. Gong Yangyu's complexion alternated between green and red. He was clearly embarrassed. Rage burned in his heart as he stood up and swung his staff at the skinny man. "Why are you so angry? We have been waiting here for a few days. It is already too boring. We are just having some fun." The skinny man did not panic at all. He just sat there cross-legged. He gently blocked the descending staff with his hand and used a skillful technique to deflect Gong Yangyu's force. Gong Yangyu's momentum was ferocious. However, he did not gain any advantage. Instead, he was easily knocked back dozens of meters. Gong Yangyu shouted and executed everlasting heaven and earth. He took 7 steps, and the 7 afterimages merged together. Immediately, the wind howled and the staff moved like a mountain. The skinny man smiled coldly and suddenly stood up. All the quintessence in his body surged as he quickly sent out 3 palm strikes. As the skinny man moved his hands, he moved his feet, slowly dissipating the force of the staff. Then, he sent out a third palm strike. Bang! Gong Yangyu vomited a mouthful of blood and went flying back. The skinny man's technique for dissipating the force was very exquisite, flabbergasting everyone. Unexpectedly, the stone stool under his feet did not shatter. The force of the staff spread to the ground, creating many tiny cracks that densely covered the ground. The skinny man mocked, "It is just a game. Why take it so seriously? You are asking for trouble. To think that you actually dare to attack me." The skinny man's gaze turned cold. Unexpectedly, he did not intend to let Gong Yangyu off. He leaped into the air and kicked at Gong Yangyu. Shio! Just at this moment, a dazzling saber light flashed. A sharp killing intent accompanied by a strand of purple saber chi flew at the skinny man. Everywhere the saber chi passed, the surrounding space rippled like waves. As the ripples spread out, they formed strong winds howling endlessly. The skinny man panicked for some reason. He quickly withdrew his leg and retreated, dodging that strand of saber chi. Ka-sie. After knocking back the skinny man with one saber strike, Xiaoqin sheathed his saber and did not make another move. Gong Yangyu stood up and walked over to Xiaoqin with a pale complexion. Then, he thanked him softly. That skinny man stared at Xiaoqin for a long time. In the end, he still found Xiaoqin somewhat unfathomable, so he gave up on making a move. Xiaoqin's saber strike conformed to the norm. There was nothing too shocking about it, but there were also no major flaws. Aside from the skinny man who was in the same situation, no one else could feel how powerful it was. At this moment, Yu Chenxi and Gong Yangyu had extremely unsightly expressions. They had not expected to run into such a situation the moment they arrived at the Supreme Sky Sect. In the future, with his identity in the Sky Dome realm, no matter where he went, people would make things difficult for him. Shao, and would, and would not. And would. Shao, even though Zhang Xian wasn't doing anything at all, he still exerted immense pressure on everyone. This was especially so for a tall and sturdy man in front. His battle spirit was as ferocious as a raging fire. He was like a wild beast on fire. They are people from the battle realms. These people are definitely from the battle realms. Unexpectedly, there are people from the battle realms coming to our Haoyan sect. The 10 great battle realms were famous. The geniuses from the battle realms were definitely not mediocre. The hearts of everyone present sank. In the future, they would probably have several more competitors. The 4 geniuses from the battle realms could not be bothered to take more than a few steps. The tall and sturdy man in front shouted at the person sitting on the nearest stone bench, "Scram! The 4 of you, quickly get up and give up your seats." The 4 people were stunned. Clearly, they had not expected to be scolded by these 4 people in front of everyone. They could not help but be put in a difficult position. You are seeking death. During this moment of hesitation, the 4 cultivators from the battle realms shouted ferociously and attacked at the same time. Vast palm energy surged out like a surging river. The palm energy surged out like a surging river. The 4 hurriedly got up to face the attack. In the end, they were no match for one palm strike. This was especially so for the man who got struck by the tall and sturdy man. That man was knocked out of the courtyard like a cannonball and landed on the streets of the city. What a fellow! The moment they disagree with each other, they start fighting. This is indeed in line with the character of the people from the battle realms. The others were startled, but they did not dare to say anything. The few truly strong people did not want to get involved with these 4 either. Everyone knew that the people of the battle realms were famous for being battle maniacs. When they started fighting, there would be no end to it. They had to determine a victor. Furthermore, these people all had the bloodline of the ancient giants flowing in their bodies. Their strength remained the same, and they did not hold back when they attacked. Even if these people were slightly stronger than the people from the battle realms, they would not be willing to fight with them. Ha! This little girl is rather pretty. Come and sit with me. At some point in time, the tall and sturdy man had fixed his gaze on Yuchensi. The tall and sturdy man laughed loudly and spread open the fingers of his huge right hand. A strong suction force immediately pulled Yuchensi into the air. The surging force was like an invisible black hole. When the tall and sturdy man suddenly attacked, Yuchensi cried out and left the ground. Xiao Chen's expression changed. He leaped up and gently landed a palm strike on Yuchensi's shoulder with his right hand. Then, he clenched his left hand into a fist and sent out a fist wind. Rumble. The two forces clashed in the air, giving off heavy buzzing sounds. Sonic booms resounded and a strong wind blew in the courtyard, making everyone's hair flutter. Xiao Chen placed his right hand on Yuchensi's shoulder and pulled him behind him without anyone noticing. Then, he said softly, "Stand behind me." When the tall and sturdy man saw Xiao Chen make a move, he did not show much displeasure in his eyes. Instead, a fervent, almost cruel light flashed in his eyes. The cultivators of the battle realms had two hobbies. One was women, and the other was fighting. Compared to women, fighting to one's heart's content was more interesting. This fellow is in trouble. That tall and sturdy man seems to be the number 2 genius of the 9th battle realm, Situ Gang. He is extremely strong. Once the cultivators of the battle realms target you, it will be very hard to shake them off. You either get killed by them or beat them to death. However, they beat most people to death. They are a bunch of madmen. Seeing that the tall and sturdy man targeted Xiao Chen, several people immediately revealed gloating expressions. This was especially so for that skinny man. A cold and cruel smile appeared in his eyes. Indeed, Situ Gang stood up and smiled coldly. Since you have the guts to block me, you should be prepared to die. Bang! Suddenly, a sonic boom resounded in the air. Situ Gang's figure flashed in the air and arrived before Xiao Chen. He did not use any fancy movement techniques, only extreme speed. Xiao Chen's expression remained calm as he sank his feet down. He circulated his vital qi quickly, and in the time it took for a spark to fly, he clashed with that punch. Bang! 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 Situ Gang pressed forward. After the first punch, he followed up with a second and a third. Every time he punched, an impassioned shout resounded in the surroundings. The shouts seemed to come from the distant ancient era. They sounded desolate and ancient, spreading a heavy aura. When the surrounding cultivators saw this, they felt astonished. If they received these 3 punches head-on, given their physical bodies, they would definitely suffer. The best way was to avoid the sharpness of the attack and use speed and skill-based martial techniques to deal with it. Someone sighed and said, "This fellow is really seeking death." Instead of dodging, he actually dares to clash head-on with a battle realm cultivator. When the skinny man heard this, he said in disdain, "He is probably too slow. How capable can the people from the Sky Dome realm be?" However, the surprising thing was that after Xiao Chen received 10 punches from Situ Gang, the entire courtyard trembled continuously before this huge force. However, Xiao Chen's footsteps did not move at all. He was like an old tree rooted to the ground, as firm as a rock as he dealt with the attacks calmly. After the 10 punches, Situ Gang saw that Xiao Chen was not in a sorry state as he expected. His expression turned serious as he pushed off the ground and landed back on the stone stool. Before that huge force, Xiao Chen's meridians, blood, and bones trembled continuously. However, that was all. Xiao Chen's body had first been tempered by the dragon and tiger body sculpting art. After cultivating the firmament body tempering art, his meridians, blood, and bones were tempered once more. His physical body was much stronger than that of regular cultivators. After circulating his energy, Xiao Chen digested the quintessence in his body. His gaze turned extremely cautious, not relaxing at all. Xiao Chen estimated that this Situ gang had only used 30% of his strength at most. This was because the other party did not seem to be panting or needing to adjust his breathing after sending out 10 punches. Indeed, the people of the Battle Realms could not be underestimated. The expressions of the other branch sect disciples changed slightly. They looked at Xiao Chen, keeping an eye out for him. Initially, no one paid attention to Xiao Chen. Now, he attracted some attention, gaining a sense of his existence. Chapter 651. Situ Gang, this fellow is a body-tempering cultivator. Use your true abilities. Otherwise, others will think that the people of the Battle Realms are only capable of this much. A Battle Realm cultivator behind Situ Gang shouted with blazing eyes. 10,000 meters in the air, the two true inheritors who had brought in Xiao Chen and the others earlier watched the situation below with interest. Chen Xiao smiled faintly and said indifferently, "Wang Cheng, these people from the lower realms are more interesting than we thought." The youth called Wang Cheng said sullenly, "I nearly misjudged this Xiao Chen. His cultivation is not high, but he also cultivates a body-tempering technique. His strength is not that simple." Chen Xiao looked around and said, "Senior brother Wang, what do you think of these geniuses from the lower realms? Do you think any of them can become true inheritors?" Wang Cheng entered deep thought and said, "I noticed that at least 10 people have pretty good talent. This is especially so for that Battle Realm Situ Gang. His cultivation is so vast that no one here can compare to him. If he enters a berserk state, he will be even more horrifying. However, it is hard to say whether they can become true inheritors or not. Let's see if they can handle the competition between the inner sect's 5 big factions first." A disciple flew down from the floating inner city and landed beside the two. After bowing respectfully, he handed over a document and said, "Senior brothers, the distribution of the inner and outer sect disciples that the elders discussed is already out." Chen Xiao received the document and said, "Unexpectedly, they discussed for so long. However, it is finally out. If we had waited any longer, we would have run out of patience." Wang Qing smiled gently and said, "That's normal. The treatment of the inner sect disciples and the outer sect disciples is very different. It is already beyond my expectations that they can come out so quickly." The two casually flipped through the document and slowly flew down to the courtyard, preparing to announce the contents of the document. At this moment, the atmosphere in the courtyard was extremely heavy. The fanaticism in Situ Gang's eyes turned into a blazing flame. His strong aura slowly soared. When everyone sensed it, they felt their hearts palpitate. They unknowingly took 2 steps back, afraid of getting caught up in the shockwaves of the battle. There were rumors of the destructive power of the people of the Battle Realms unleashing their true strength. No one was willing to suffer such a calamity. However, on the other side, Xiao Chen did not show any intention of backing down. He gathered his aura. Even when facing a strong Battle Realm expert, he was neither servile nor overbearing, maintaining a calm expression. Hu Qi. However, just as the intense battle was about to erupt, 2 vast auras suddenly appeared in the courtyard that tore through the clouds. It was as if an invisible ocean had suddenly crashed down, silently covering everything. Although Situ Gang's valiant and frightening aura was powerful, it was not worth mentioning in this vast ocean. Very quickly, it was submerged and disappeared without a trace. Everyone quickly looked over and saw that Chen Xiao and Wang Cheng were already standing on top of the wall. "It's a true disciple." Someone immediately recognized who they were. Their gazes were filled with yearning. They were shocked by the strength they had displayed. Just by relying on their auras, they easily resolved the situation. Even someone as irascible as Situ Gang did not dare to lose his temper. "Very good. At least you know your limits. Now, I will announce which of you can enter the inner sect and which will be assigned to the outer sect." When Chen Xiao saw that no one said anything, he nodded and spoke in a calm tone. When everyone heard this, they pricked up their ears. Outer sect and inner sect. There was only a difference of one word, but the treatment they received was as different as heaven and earth. Everyone hoped that they would be assigned to the inner sect. Everyone showed expressions of anticipation as they waited quietly. Wang Cheng, who was at the side, held the official document and said, "I will only read out the names of the people assigned to the inner sect. Those whose names are not read out are naturally outer sect disciples." As the names were read out one by one, several people revealed joyful smiles. As for those whose names were not read out, they waited anxiously. Xiaoqian did not have to wait for long before he heard his name called. He relaxed slightly. As for Yu Chenxi and Gong Yangyu, they did not hear their names read out. Although they had expected this, they could not help but feel disappointed. "I am not convinced. Why is he only an early-stage inferior grade martial monarch? Furthermore, he is a cultivator of the Sky Dome realm. He is directly sent to the inner sect. I am a peak inferior grade martial monarch, yet I still have to struggle in the outer sect." A long-faced cultivator whose name was not read out shouted as he pointed at Xiaoqian. The moment this cultivator said this, the people whose names were not read out felt dissatisfied and echoed his sentiments. There were always some people who felt that others were only so, that they could not compare to them. Xiaoqian did not find this strange. He could not be bothered with them, waiting to see how the two true inheritors would deal with this. Chen Xiao and Wang Qing did not seem surprised. Their gazes casually landed on the person who caused trouble first. "This is not fair, absolutely not fair. I want to fight with him. I can prove that I am qualified to enter the inner sect." That long-faced cultivator jabbered on endlessly to Chen Xiao and Wang Qing. Wang Qing frowned slightly and pointed with his finger. A deep blue sword chi shot out from his fingertip. The sword chi was incredibly sharp. It ignored the long-faced cultivator's protective quintessence and directly tore a small hole in his chest. Without any warning, Wang Qing attacked directly, mercilessly teaching this person a lesson. When the other people who agreed with the long-faced cultivator saw this scene, they immediately shut up. "Why did you injure me? I did not do anything wrong. Are you all that great just because you are true inheritors?" the long-faced cultivator asked as he held his chest in intense pain. Wang Qing did not say anything. Chen Xiao formed hand seals with both hands and formed a cage-like hand seal. Then, he sent it at the long-faced cultivator. A light flickered, and the cage-like hand seal entered the long-faced cultivator's body. His aura vanished, and he became like an ordinary person. "What's going on? Why can't I circulate my quintessence?" The long-faced cultivator exclaimed in horror when he felt the situation in his body. Chen Xiao said expressionlessly, "As true inheritors, we have the authority to enforce the rules. We can kill those who look down on the decisions of the Elders' Assembly. Since this is your first time in the Haotian sect, I will only punish you a little. I will seal your dantian for 1 month." Wang Qing said, "Outer sect disciples can take the test every once in a while. If you are strong enough, it would not be difficult for you to become an inner sect disciple." Seeing the two's strength, no one dared to say anything else. They all kept quiet. The two leaped off the wall, and Chen Xiao said, "Inner sect disciples, follow me to the east of the city. Senior brother Wang will lead the outer sect disciples." The 100 or 200 people who came split into 2 groups and headed out of the courtyard. Just as they were about to leave, Yu Chenxi said sincerely, "Senior brother Xiaoqian, thank you for your help." Xiaoqian had risked offending a battle realm genius to shield her. Yu Chenxi's gratitude to Xiaoqian was indescribable. Xiaoqian smiled faintly and said, "You are my friend. If you are in trouble, how can I sit back and do nothing? I believe that you will definitely help me if I am in trouble. Work hard. I will look out for you in the inner sect. Given your talent, you will definitely regain your former pride." Yu Chenxi nodded heavily and said, "I definitely will." The two waved goodbye. Gong Yangyu, who was at the side, said some words of thanks before leaving silently. Under Chen Zhao's lead, the group quickly headed to the east of the city. The east of the city was very large, but there was only one entrance. There were people guarding the entrance. When the disciples guarding the entrance saw Qin Shao, they immediately bowed respectfully. Every month, you will receive 10,000 superior grade spirit stones and 10 inferior grade spirit gathering pearls. Every 7 days, an old senior of the sect will give you a lecture. However, you are not allowed to ask questions. If you ask in private, you will have to pay spirit stones. Qin Shao first brought the group to register. After they received their inner sect identity medallions, he explained the treatment and sect rules that inner sect disciples enjoyed. 10,000 superior grade spirit stones and 10 inferior grade spirit gathering pearls. Everyone could not help but reveal expressions of joy. None of the sects in the lower realms were able to enjoy such treatment. Furthermore, spirit gathering pearls were even rarer. They required a large number of martial sages to refine them by exhausting their cultivation. The teachings of an old senior would also enlighten them. Most true experts would not be so kind as to share their cultivation experiences with others. This is where you will be staying. Every 10 rooms will share a rank 1 spirit vein's origin. Every month, you will need to spend 10,000 superior grade spirit stones. Qin Shao pointed at a row of simple residential areas and said slowly. When everyone heard the first half of what Shao Qin said, they all revealed excited expressions. In the lower realm, a rank 1 spirit vein's origin could support a large sect with tens of thousands of people. Here, 10 inner sect disciples could share one. However, when they heard the second half of what Shao Qin said, their faces immediately sank. They would only receive 10,000 superior grade spirit stones a month. Just the cost of their accommodation would be used up. If they wanted to cultivate, obtain medicinal pills, or go out exploring, they would not have any spirit stones left. You need spirit stones? That is too expensive. Qin Shao ignored everyone's complaints. He continued, if you want to stay in a better place, you can pay an additional spirit stone and enjoy a spirit vein's origin to yourself. Furthermore, everyone will have to take on a mission from the sect at least once a month. However, you new disciples will have 1 month to familiarize yourselves. After that, Qin Shao answered a few simple questions from the crowd. Then, he took his leave. Before everyone's envious gazes, he flew to the floating mountain peak that belonged to him. The houses in the residential area were all adjacent to each other. Compared to the independent courtyard that Shao Qin lived in, the environment was much simpler. After tidying up the house, Shao Qin sat at the head of the bed and started to think about his cultivation goals. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.